everybody. Surprised you broke away from the courts.
From the what?
From the courts.
Oh, I'm going at 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Got a date.
Wish to speak. Okay.
Yeah.
Get done.
Thank you.
Hmm? All right. I think we have everybody. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Village of Cottage Grove Board of Trustees. It is Monday, October 7th at 6:31 on my watch. We are holding this in the Village Hall as well as on Zoom. Zoom link is at the agenda. With that, we have a quorum. The agenda is properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, then, we have public appearances, public's opportunity to speak on any subject. If you are from the public, we just ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes. In case we have a few folks who like to speak, which we already have a number of forms up here, so we'll get started with those. First off, we have seven, I can't read the last, how you wrote the last name. What's your last name?
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you. Would like to speak about the library, and please come up and...
Is this right?
Yes, please, and then make sure you push the little person button so that they can hear you on the Zoom.
All right. Hello, everyone. So my concern with this proposal, the current property looks in a pretty bad. It needs a lot of work. Both the building and the parking lot and the rest of the property. So my question is, we want to develop this property and make it into a library. We're going to be using it for a while, but at some point, it's going to need to be. It's going to need some pretty significant investment. The amount of money we're putting into this building, to this property, to buy it now, if it's a purchase, are we going to get that back ever? Again, given the state of disrepair the property currently finds itself in. Is this going to be a good investment? Are we going to get our money back? Or is it going to be, like a high price to purchase it, and then we're going to sell it for pennies on the dollar? That's the concern that I have.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, who should speak? Cassandra Morden? Morning, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Mordini. I'm a resident of Cottage Grove in the Quarry Ridge neighborhood. I've lived here for 9.5 years and have always felt we've been missing a piece by not having a library. You may recall seeing me here before. I'm an advocate for this project. And I do want to just also thank you all for your service, because I recognize the time and effort you put into being a voice for our community, and I do sincerely appreciate that. As I think about the agenda item tonight, actually having seen it on the agenda at the last board meeting, to me this is just an exploratory piece. This is not to engage architects to determine if this property is something that can support a library. And if it can, to what end? Like what would that investment be? Could this potentially be that cost-saving alternative to building a brand new building? The agenda item tonight, to engage architects, will help us answer those questions. Understanding that there are competing priorities for our village and we have financial constraints, I think this is a responsible decision to find a way to, find a way to work multiple goals, to see through what it might cost to turn this piece of property into a library. Maybe it's not the answer, but we won't know unless we engage the architects. And so I'm here as a resident asking you to invest in that process to see if this is a feasible opportunity for a library in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. JP?
Good evening, everyone. And John, appreciate you trying not to say my last name.
I'm not going to try.
It's V. Vicencio for the record, 702 Wheelbridge Road. So a resident here in the village of Cottage Grove. So I'm speaking on in favor of exploring whether the Learning Ladder site would be a valid site for a library. As it was discussed previously by the latest speaker, is that this has been an agenda item for the past couple board meetings. And really my biggest point I want to make here today is that a decision needs to be made tonight, especially considering that if we go forward with this, if it has to go to referendum, we're talking about a very short timeline to not only fully engage the public, to make sure all the facts are known in a manner that is equitable for everyone to fully understand it. So with all that in mind, I really do advocate on behalf of making the decision tonight. That being said, I'm a strong advocate for a library because of this unique opportunity we have. If you really think about it, a couple of years ago, the Library Commission Board or Planning Group proposed roughly what, $19 to $20 million brand new library that met all the needs. We have an opportunity to have something at, give or take, estimation, my rough estimation, 2 million plus, not even factoring in the community support through donations, grants, among other things. I know cost has been a big concern, especially the tax impact, but as the library board has found and the feasibility study that was done couple years ago, we have the opportunity to gather great, tremendous support from the community to raise substantial dollars. That's not even factoring in the Friends of the Library who would be willing to sell that land that they own. So that in itself would be more than enough to cover renovation costs or potentially cover renovation costs among other things. So when you factor all of this in, this is a great financial decision, an opportunity to provide a service at a very low cost to the community. Furthermore, one of the things that I think this potential site and the library does bring is a community space that's sorely needed. I've heard from a number of residents that are looking to host events. Yes, we have Flynn Hall, but that's one site. Yes, we have businesses, but we can't always rely on those businesses to be open even after business hours. One of my neighbors was talking about the Girl Scouts. Just due to timing commitments, Flynn Hall not being available, they've had to meet at Oakstone, a bar for Girl Scouts. I don't know about you, but for some members of the community, that's not the safe and most appropriate space for those types of meetings. So this library, on top of all the educational and public good, would also be that community space for both the young and even the old that this community has been saying, and you saw it in the numerous surveys that are here. So, in short, I just ask you all to strongly consider this as a great opportunity. It's a unique opportunity that I think the village would really should consider, because it's not going to come again, especially with given the location being right next to a park. Thank you.
Thank you, GP. All right, next who wishes to speak? Tiffany Hangerson. Tiffany, you here? Yes, oh, there you are.
All right, good evening, village board members. My name is Tiffany Helgerson.
Oops.
Oh,
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
Yep,
Do I
thank
push
you.
the person? There we go. All right, good evening, village board members. My name is Tiffany Helgerson, and I'm the Youth Services Coordinator at Monona Public Library. I've served the community of Monona for 6 years in a few roles, from library assistant to teen librarian and now department manager. Tonight, I'm here to implore upon you the vitalness of opening a public library in Cottage Grove. I share with you just a small window tonight into the countless benefits of voting yes on this incredibly important investment. Before I start, for all of you who are here tonight, can I ask you to raise your hand if you grew up going to a public library? Great. For those of you who did not grow up going to a public library, how many of you wish you had the opportunity to go to a public library? All right. Monona Public Library has been there for youth and adults going through the most difficult times. This includes situations connecting people with services and resources who are facing housing insecurity, children struggling with reading, and helping a family find books about divorce to support a child struggling with such a big change. And there are many joyful moments. The glowing faces of many young, reluctant readers when you help them discover a book that they love. And my most recent favorite experience at our Bluey Storytime with about 600 people was having a child cry because they didn't want a picture with Bluey and Bingo. They wanted, in fact, a picture with the librarians. Public libraries foster partnerships that are deeply critical to communities, particularly with schools. We build bridges together so families and youth have a landing spot outside of school hours, especially in summer. Our partnerships with schools have led to incredible outcomes. Like this past summer, for example, we had over 1,400 people register for our summer reading program. When looking deeper at the numbers, we discovered this year that nearly half of the students at Winnequa Elementary registered for the summer reading program. Think about how impactful that is during a time notorious for the summer slide, the term used to describe learning loss over the summer break. At Monona Public Library, the partnerships and connections we have formed with tweens and teens have resulted in us ranking #2 per capita in program attendance out of the 65 libraries in the South Central Library System. Tweens and teens use our safe space after school for social outlets, which is critical with after-school at-risk hours for youth being between 3 and 4 p.m. Our teen volunteer program over the summer brings in anywhere from 20 to 25 teens who spend the summer with us to work the summer reading desk, support us with programs, and gain skills for their first job or college resumes. And finally, I'll share that the library has an undeniably important part of serving seniors in our community. Many seek our tech tutoring services, support with applying for jobs if they find themselves financially needing to work again. There's our partnership with the Senior Center for memory screenings to check for dementia. And we also serve as a space for social groups to form. And as we all know, Cottage Grove is expanding. And with that expansion will come people from all different walks of life, varying socioeconomic status, cultural background, race, and identity. How will you ensure that everyone equitably has access to resources, learning opportunities, and social connection free of charge? And most importantly, a safe, free, and open space where anyone can find a sense of belonging. And it's here that I reach my question to board members tonight that I hope you'll ask yourselves. During the time that you hold this seat, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the person who voted no to the educational lifeblood of a community? Do you want to be remembered as the person who said no to an amazing way to invest in the education of youth in your community? Do you want to be remembered as the person who said no to a place that, no matter who you are, you can see yourself and discover the world around you regardless of your income status? And with that question, I leave you with a quote. Of course, I'm a librarian, right? By author and illustrator Jarrett Krasowska. And I hope you will sit with it as you prepare to cast your vote in the future. It's an awfully sad misconception that librarians simply check books in and out. The library is the heart of a community, and without a librarian, it is but an empty shell. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next wish to speak, Mary Wick.
Hi, I'm Mary Wick. I live in the town of Cottage Grove. I've been there over 40 years, and I worked for the village for the last 14 years as the Cottage Grove crossing guard for the elementary school. So I do have a vested interest in the village, and certainly I have an interest in having a library for the community. I want to thank you all, first of all, for considering this and letting me speak, and mostly I want to thank you for not putting me first to speak, because I can say, I agree with that guy, and I agree with her, and I agree with what this person said. I can pretty much scratch my whole speech because they've said it all. But the one basis thing that they said that I wanted to accent too was community. A library serves a community. There was just an article, I'm sure you're aware of it, but it was in the Cottage Grove paper, and it talks about how Cottage Grove was leading in Dane County in construction. But it goes on to say that all the tax incremental finance districts are being developed. It doesn't say anything about residents. It doesn't really say anything about community. It talks about industrial development. It talks about commercial, talks about retail, but it doesn't talk about the people that are going to support these investments. And where is something for the community? A library. And it's a no-brainer. I mean, I understand they're only asking 1.5 million. Maybe that you think there's a lot of money there, but some of these houses on Damascus Trail that they're building up on that hill must cost close to that. I mean, it just seems that Cottage Grove right now is identified as the village, the district that got the Amazon contract. We're the district that when you drive in the two main roads, you see apartment building after apartment building. We're the district that doesn't have a downtown established like many of the other smaller communities. We don't have that identity. And we also are a district that has a failing, I hate to say this, sorry, school board right now. The school board isn't failing, it's the schools themselves that are financially in trouble. And we need a better image than that. We need a community image. And the best way to start that is with a library. And when you think of all the money that's spent everywhere else on all these TIF investments, and I understand their tax benefits to this village eventually when the TIF money is all settled, but a library is community. It's a gathering space. Right now, the only gathering space we have, as JP said, is the bars or the restaurants, and we need a better gathering space to keep community alive in Cottage Grove. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next wish to speak is Robin Smekel. Robin, I'm sorry I butchered your name.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you. Robin Smekel on Clearbrook Terrace in the village of Cottage Grove. I am here tonight to speak in favor of transforming the Learning Ladder building into a community library. In order to fully understand this project and the opportunity that it presents to our community, it is necessary to seek professional evaluations. Tonight, I encourage you to vote in favor of contracting Engberg Anderson as the architects and engineers, as well as Mueller Communications as part of the due diligence process for this project. As a village resident, I support the financial investment it would require to hire those professionals and look into if it's feasible to have a community library in that space. And finally, please work towards acquiring this space as outlined as a closed session item for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Rebecca Miller wishes to speak. Rebecca? Hey.
Hi there. My name's Rebecca Miller, and my family and I have been village residents for just over 6 years. I have 3 young children that are all enrolled in the Monona Grove School District. And I'm also speaking in favor of the village board completing due diligence efforts for the consideration of transforming the Learning Ladder building into a community library. Similar to what others have shared, I am mostly looking at this from a philosophical perspective, trying to think about what is at the heart of communities. And I think the argument that I would underscore, to not repeat what others have said, is that as we as a village grow and diversify, it is important to me that our community can provide local access to resources and programming to support all of its residents. And as has been said, libraries serve as a pillar for community building, connection to resources, networking, and I think most importantly, provide a physical space for residents of all backgrounds, cultures, abilities to gather and feel a sense of belonging. I would also say, as a licensed marriage and family therapist that has spent my whole career working for underrepresented populations through Head Start as the director of mental health and wellness at Reach State in Madison, I think we are living in a crisis of mental health, and we need to think about ways to bring ourselves together to stave off isolation and loneliness. And I think a community could be a gathering space to help all ages support mental health community-wide, young mothers, caregivers, find resources, access new friendships. Actually, some of the most profound experiences I've had as a mother with young children has been accessing the programming that the Friends of the Village Grove or the Cottage Grove Library have brought together. It has been a tremendous source of networking and learning how to be a better mom, better community member, et cetera. So I think those are my main points, and thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you will consider allowing a referendum to give voice and choice to our community in this matter. Thank you. And I live at 305 School Road.
Thank you, Rebecca. Then we had a few folks that submitted wish to speak, didn't wish to speak, just wanted to make sure their voices were heard. Kevin Steffens, it looks like, and Dungle Drive just was in support, again, of the library exploration. Susan Carvis, again, Village Cottage Grove resident, in favor of support of exploring this further regarding the library. And continue on, wish to speak for him but didn't wish to speak. Jill Runzel, Sandpiper Trail, again, Cottage Grove resident, again, supporting converting the Learning Ladder over to a Cottage Grove library. And then another one, Emily Crutchen, again, village resident, and in favor and support of furthering along the library progress. Katie Maroon, again on this, Katie's on Southern Grange, again resident of Cottage Grove, and again wishes to be in favor of the library and Learning Ladder. And then finally, Andrea Bertrone, Fox Circle, again village resident, didn't wish to speak, but was again in favor of using the Learning Ladder as the public library. So, anybody else in the room or on Zoom wish to speak on any subject?
I'm on Zoom. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't get it registered yet. So my name is Dr. Renee Stateskull. I am a village resident. I live on Clearbrook Terrace. And I just, so I'm a licensed child psychologist and a credentialed school psychologist. I work in the school district. And I thank you so much for your time on the board. And as a psychologist, I know how hard it is to change people's minds. So I know some of you have already brought up some concerns about the library in the past. And I know one of the only ways that we change people's minds, one of the rare ways, is to bring new information. So I just wanted to, I'm sure that you know most of the information already, but I wanted to bring attention to the American Economic Journal, who wrote an article in 2024 on the returns of public library investment, seeing it as a fiscally conservative move for villages, noting that the cost per pupil in public library investment is less than the cost per pupil in public schools. I probably shouldn't say that as a public school employee, but it is what they found to be true. And I can certainly send that journal article in. I'm also just wanted to say another argument has been that when residents moved to Cottage Grove, they knew that there wouldn't be that there isn't a public library. And I did know that when I moved here. Things changed in the 10 years since I've lived here. I wasn't expecting to have twins. I wasn't expecting to get a sinus infection today and not be able to be there in person. So my life view changed in terms of my financial situation of having more children than I had planned for, and recognizing that the investment in a public library, how important it is. The other thing I didn't expect was to go through a global pandemic as a young mother with elderly parents and a school employee. That has really changed my viewpoint on what I think community means and what I think it means to be mentally and emotionally and educationally healthy. I did not think it important that I stay in Cottage Grove to do my grocery shopping or go to the pharmacy in town, or go to the local CVS, or to go to local restaurants. During the pandemic, that changed. I wanted to know my neighbors, and I would like my children to be able to bike to a library. I would like the children who live in the apartments to be able to bike to a library. I know it'll help us as a public school system, and I know it'll help our community. I'd like to be able to meet my neighbors in the library. So thank you all for your investment, and I recognize this is just exploratory. I think the other piece I would just encourage you to consider is this is exploratory, and it'll allow the community to decide through referendum if we want to pursue it. So I support allocating the funds to move forward with this, and then allowing the community to decide if we want to allocate further funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Anyone else?
I would like to speak, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Amy Theo. I'm speaking tonight as a Cottage Grove resident of 4 years here on St. John Street. I'm a mother of 2 great kids, an employee of the Monona Grove School District for over 8 years now, where I work as an occupational therapy assistant. I am here in support of approving the use of the old Learning Ladder building for a community library. Library is so much more than just a place to check out books. It plays a vital role in bringing a community together. For that reason, I am willing to support a tax increase to help move this project forward. Just a little personal side of things. My 5-year-old daughter, Mia, and we've found it particularly challenging to find community spaces that are accepting, inclusive, and non-judgmental. Mia has autism, hearing and vision loss, and multiple physical differences. As I considered what to share with you all tonight, I realized I couldn't pinpoint just one specific instance where we struggled to integrate into a community space because there have been so many. Libraries, however, have often been a refuge for us, providing that inclusive and accepting space. Having one nearby would benefit not only our family, but many others as well. There's a unique sense of peace when you walk into a library, and in moments when my family's on edge, finding a calm space means everything to both my children and me. As an occupational therapist, I also see the enormous benefits of a library at the old Learning Ladder location could offer. It could create opportunities for community events, inclusivity, and perhaps even an accessible playground. With so many possibilities for all age groups, I believe bringing a library to Cottage Grove will open doors for many, including both young and old, allowing them to create memories in a safe, welcoming, and adaptive community space. I look forward to seeing where this project goes, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anyone else on the Zoom or in the room? All right, then we'll move to the next agenda item. Thanks, everybody, for your input. And that is discuss and consider our village board meeting minutes from September 16th. Any questions, comments, or edits in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the village board meeting minutes from September 16th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we'll move to unfinished business, starting with discuss and consider amendment for the development agreement for Supreme Structures. Larry, is that you?
Yes, this is just a modification. There was a two-step requirement under the existing agreement in terms of the assessed value guarantee, partial by January 1 of this upcoming year, and then the full value guarantee by 26. They're not going to meet the partial 50% of that requirement by the first, so that we're proposing removing that requirement. They still will be required to have the full value created by January 1 of 2026. So it doesn't really set it back. It's just an unusual deal where we had a two-stage process in place.
And just to add, we don't necessarily have these in there to be punitive, more so to keep the developer moving forward, and they have had some slowdowns and not able to secure a tenant, but have had some progress in that regard and a possible exciting project that's moving forward. So this was their request, and ultimately what would ultimately be built would be well above and beyond the final guarantee.
Okay. Any questions from board members?
Just to clarify, I think I understand this correctly, but just so it's out, the village, it doesn't cost the village anything to do this because it's a pay-go incentive, so it's not like we'll be realizing this eventually when it's developed, but we're not out anything now, is that right?
Correct, and I don't believe they are getting an incentive here. That was on the land sale side, correct, Larry? Or
Right, and there's been a couple rounds on this one because of some fits and starts. So we've been working to really get it, to work with the people who have come before even Supreme and to get it moving.
Yeah, I was
But
mostly,
correct,
yeah,
not-
just, it doesn't cost us any, I know might be listeners that don't understand the TIFs as,
correct, no cost to the village.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I would make the motion to approve the amendment to development agreement with Supreme Structures as presented. Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next, then, we have discuss and consider contract for services of Enberg Anderson Architects for a site feasibility due diligence efforts regarding the village library at the Learning Ladder property. Any action will follow the closed session in this particular case. So we do have a representative from Enberg, right? Drew? Come on up.
John, I think they're here for the police.
Oh, they're here for the police
Station,
station.
yeah.
Okay, they don't.
I mean, the board's welcome to discuss the item, but it's already been presented on before.
Oh, right.
So we're suggesting that it's a closed session discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any board member have any comments otherwise?
I mean, we're going to discuss the architect proposal again in closed session and then come out of closed session and
It's
potential
not as much
action
as,
on that.
it's discussing terms and
Right, on the site.
negotiating related to the site. You guys are free to handle it however you'd want, though.
Yeah, but there is an opportunity to make decisions after closed session.
Yes.
But there will be a number of things we'll discuss related to the various aspects of this idea that
Right.
have arisen over time here.
And the recording will be available after closed session. We come back to this Zoom room after, just if anyone's listening and wants to tune back in later after closed session to find out any further actions taken.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes, that is correct. All right. Then we'll move on to, unless anybody else has anything else, we'll move on to discuss and consider contract pelletier waste services for garbage and refuse services.
Hey, John, Cameron, I'm online. Similar to the assessment services, because this was discussed in closed session, this is formally bringing back the agreement in open session to approve. No changes from what was presented in the presentation by Pelletieri. I do want to note Pelletieri does provide a free community shred event if it's requested. So staff will work on, if you choose to approve the agreement, on coordinating dates for that annually. Additionally, there's some public work discussion about date and times for e-cycle event. The agreement that's in the packet, there's a couple in some of the legal sections of the agreement that have been changed slightly, but nothing that's material in nature. So we'll have a fresh copy for you guys to sign.
Larry, anything on the legal end you want to comment on or no? Okay. Any questions, comments?
I had a question, and I don't know, Cameron, if you can answer this. It talks about that Pelletieri would pay Cottage Grove $1 per container for container. Do we own those containers, or are they part of the waste management or the existing?
That's a complicated question. So waste management actually owns all the carts. So what we had to do and why this took a little bit of a lengthy process is we bought the carts from Waste Management for a total of $1 for the collection. So for all of 4,400 carts. Okay. Pelletieri, then we will sell back the carts to Pelletieri for $1, not each, $1. And then they will replace carts as they are needed. But the village will not retain any ownership of the carts.
Okay, that answers the question. I just wasn't clear that we own them, but it'll basically be a transfer in kind. Okay.
Back when we were first talking about the contract, I was in favor of including at least a couple of large items in pickup, even if it's not unlimited free for residents like we have in our current contract. So I saw the pricing chart. If someone puts out garbage at their curb and they don't call or pay to arrange, like how is that managed? Does the village then arrange for it to be picked up and charged back on taxes, or like what happens with a sofa that sits outside for 3 months, for example?
So I'll probably defer to Larry on this because it would probably tie back to our
I think what
ordinance
happens
and-
is like in DeForest, same thing. So when they collect garbage, if they can't take it, they'll put a notice on the item with a number to call and how to manage it.
Yeah, so the contract doesn't require them to pick up anything that's not in the carts unless there's an arrangement made. And I think there will almost certainly be some people who don't realize that or see someone else's out and they think they can put the same thing out and they'll get, either it'll get not picked up and it'll still be sitting there and the resident needs to do something with it or there'll be a tag on it. But they would have to arrange with Pelletieri. In my experience, a lot of times they just pick it up and throw it in the thing and tell us, let them know next time you can't do that, but we'll see. The practical is always a little different than what the contract.
Sure. Well, there is a difference between knowing what the process is and being able to complete the process.
Right.
So you have to be able to log online and make the payment, have the funds to make the payment, and then it's also affecting, you know, the general broader community by having something outside that, you know, can't be taken care of. So it's affecting everyone. So if someone can't or won't
Then it's
complete the process, then
Yeah, then it's an enforcement question, just like if it wasn't related to, it's gonna be in the right of way. Just like we would deal with anything else in the community that would arise like that.
so really in the end, the cost will come down on the community. Anyway, that's my case for including a few items that it will eventually cost the community extra money. So in the future,
No, I don't think it
we
would,
should
Heidi. I
consider,
think,
no?
no, we would, it would be an ordinance violation if there's junk in the yard and it's a complaint, and we would,
Right, then it's a complaint and it's staff time, dealing with the
Sure.
complaint,
yeah.
talking to the resident, talking them through how to do the process, if they can do the process, writing a ticket. So there's a whole, like, cost outside of that. Anyway, that's my food for thought for my colleagues in the future to perhaps consider including a few items per year.
When we discussed before that we could potentially revisit that, you know, after the first year, maybe that's something that we definitely do.
That's fair.
Yeah, and Heidi, I guess I want to make sure that we're clear on this. The Pelletier is very flexible on everything besides the kind of core services, the garbages and recycling. And again, if we want to go to weekly recycling, that's another conversation they'd be willing to do mid-contract. So if for some reason, you know, we wanted to do a large item pickup event next year, they would even do it. I think originally without having any data, we wouldn't have a good idea about how much it would cost besides comparing to our other communities. And just to put it again on public record, both options that were evaluated did not include free large item pickup like Waste Management's current contract, which was inherited from Veolia to Advanced, from Advanced to Waste Management. And as it comes to staff time, similar with like weeds or anything, not a ton of staff time related to sending those notices.
When we do, will Pelletieri be part of our annual services review? So that would be a time when we could talk about if this becomes an issue, if we want to make a change to the contract.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would encourage Public Works to kind of discuss, because they are that sustainability wing too. So yeah, and come with recommendations. I know they are, and I don't know if that's going to be talked about during the Public Works update, but they recommended a couple dates for e-cycle too.
Great.
And Pelletieri does do education for communities for free. So they've done be active on social at all. They do stuff for Sun Prairie and other communities that utilize them, specifically around like what's allowable recycle, what's non-allowable, and just general kind of education.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because there's a whole thing called wish cycling and how you really want to be able to recycle something, but if they can't process it. So I appreciate that additional education.
Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with Pelletieri Waste Systems for garbage and refuse services as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? You may abstain. Motion carries. Then we'll move on to new business, the annual review of village consultants and service providers, starting off with Colonial Club.
Hello.
Just press the button. It looks like
It
a
already
vote.
is.
Oh, it isn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you for inviting us. I'm Melody Riedel. I'm the Director of Operations and Services at the Colonial Club. I've worked there going on 31 years. And with me is...
I'm Laura Jennings. I'm the Director of Support Services and Activities, and I've been there 11 years.
We are here to provide you with a brief overview of the Colonial Club Senior Activity Center. With your help, we can say that we are a financially stable nonprofit organization, which not every nonprofit is able to say. So we do appreciate your support over the past years. Finding people, one struggle that we have is finding people who are in non-management positions to work for us. This is not an uncommon thing across the country, but we are struggling with that for our supportive home care program, who goes into homes to do home tour services and personal cares, as well as a CNA position, which we have been trying to hire for the past year and a half. And either they don't show up, or they show up and they don't come to work, whatever. It's not an uncommon thing that's happening out there, but it is a struggle in our organization as well. So we're doing the best that we can and continuing on. If we are able to gain more folks to work in those departments, we would be able to serve more people. It kind of goes hand in hand. We only have so many people that we can stretch and share with our communities. So we do have people in the Cottage Grove area who we are delivering meals to. We have some of your residents who are volunteers helping us to deliver those meals, as well as we have people in the community who are receiving supportive home care. Without those services, I am sure those residents would not be able to remain in their own home. They would have to find alternative living arrangements. So we are making a difference. You all are making a difference with your dollars that you do give to us. We have others who have our case management program as their lifeline. As you well know, not every older adult in the community has family or any type of support services that are able to assist them in their decision making. So their lifeline is one of our case managers back at the Colonial Club, helping them make those choices, helping them set up the services that they may need in their own home, helping other community organizations help them. So it's not uncommon these days that that's happening more often than not. So the cases are getting more complex and a lot more work for our case managers. We're also coming up on Medicare Part D season right around the corner. So we will be assisting any resident who needs assistance with that program also. We do provide some transportation to some of your residents also. We pick them up at their own homes, bring them into the Colonial Club. They are able to participate in some of the activities that Laura's going to share here in just a little bit. And then they stay for lunch, and then we bring them back home at the after lunch. So they're getting that very important socialization that is needed out there in this day and age. So I'm going to let Laura talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. We do provide a lot of different activities for the seniors that come to the Colonial Club. Especially during COVID, we found how important socialization is. Many of our adult seniors that come in will tell us maybe that's the only time they see people that day. And we have cards, we have, we're not just bingo. A lot of people think us senior centers bingo. And I heard a lot of discussion about the library and how important that community space is. And that's what we are for the older adults in Cottage Grove, Sun Prairie, and other communities, that they can come. We've had some that come every day. They come for lunch, they come for maybe cards or a class, and are able, an exercise class, we have exercise, we have, cars are very popular, we have entertainment, we have one-time educational programs, we try to provide health information so they can learn about, healthy eating, exercise, how to stay healthy, and a socialization on the CDC website. The research has shown that it helps them live more independently, live healthier, and live longer if they're able to have that social interaction with their peers and with our staff. Many of them develop quite a relationship with our staff and with other seniors in the building. So our volunteers, they come from Cottage Grove, they deliver those meals Melody talked about. We also have them helping in our building. They come for help with the receptionists. For retired people, sometimes volunteering is the one way they have to be able to interact with other people that day, and they really enjoy it. So we can see that people often tell us they're glad we're there because that's the one thing that they get up for in the morning, and they come and they can have an enjoyable day. So I thank you for your support in the past. It really has made a difference.
Do you have any questions for us?
Chris, go ahead.
Do you ever partner with, like, say, like the libraries in other communities and have services there instead of just at the Colonial Club?
In fact, we partner with the Dane County Library that provides books once a month, so people can check them out and then bring them back. And it's on an honors basis. They sign them out and they bring them back. We also partner with businesses, so we have had chiropractic, we've had pharmacies, we have a vaccination clinic coming up, we have different programs. Sometimes we have art classes, we have different businesses that will donate their time to provide that information in classes.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
I just wanted to comment that I think it's a wonderful program that you're doing, and that it's wonderful that elderly population is getting the socialization that they need. Just one quick question in regarding to social work services. Do you offer that or contract out for that?
So the closest thing to social work services are case managers. They are not licensed social workers, however, they have the same abilities and same resource management that others would. That's how they're able to get their social work side of things.
I just have a quick question on volume. That, as we come into budget season, have you noticed an increase in the number of folks participating in your program or needing food delivered from Cottage Grove?
Meal delivery is kind of an odd duck. It goes up one year, down the next year, up the next year. We don't really know what drives those peaks and valleys. I didn't look at statistics for this year. I know we crept down a little bit last year, but Cottage Grove is just as busy as always. I can't see that it has decreased at all from last year, and if anything, it has increased, yeah.
And then I guess how do seniors in our community find out about you, and how can they interact with your services?
You have our courier out here in your lobby, and then we do drop the courier off to other locations in Cottage Grove. Laura may have some other
So we drop them off like at the coffee, there's a great coffee place here for breakfast, by the way. I come with my husband. So we drop it off places like that, the pharmacy. We also have our website. We have a Facebook page. We're on social media. Word of mouth is also helpful, and they let people know. We have some people who they'll bring their friends or they'll tell them about it. So we try to get, as a nonprofit, our marketing dollars are pretty small, but we do try to get that information out there.
And the doctors, nurses of all the clinics are very well aware of our services too, so we get a lot of referrals from them, clergymen.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you both.
To Cindy's question, this is probably an opportunity as we kind of embrace our communication strategy, getting this out there with just the courier in the lobby. The formal contract that's had in place for a long time probably is needed a fresh set of eyes on it. They're kind of over the time of transition. There are requests that we can make for different types of services being provided or kind of goals and metrics. So that might be something that the board wants to consider at some point in time. What are different metrics or what are different things that you want to see from this group?
Thanks, Carmen. Thank you both again.
Thank you very much.
All right, next then we have presentation from Johnson Block, our IT provider.
All right. Hello, everybody. I have a PowerPoint if you want me to share it. Otherwise, I can just go through it. It's not much to it.
It might be helpful for those on the Zoom.
Sure.
And aren't familiar with what you guys do.
Sure. So, obviously, I'm the director. We've been doing the IT here for, boy, it seems like a lot longer. We've got a lot done, and you've kept us busy. But I'll try to keep it brief anyway. Service team is 6, so we have an intern. I'm the director. We've got Jacob Fesky, Josh Wall, Jacob Wyanecki, Joe Hansen, and Braden Parman. It was hard to hire Braden without a first name that started with J, but we got it through anyway. It's tough. I'm sure some of you know, yeah. So just last year, going over our numbers, we had about not last year, but this year to about October 1st, we had about 700 tickets submitted by employees, 695 closed, so, I did that backwards, but yeah, so about 700 closed. Our average response time is right around 9 minutes, which is really good. Average resolution time is about 30 minutes, which is really good. And then there's a bunch of tickets we do that don't involve a direct user needing to take up their time. So you can see that's about 1,200 tickets there. So almost double the work we do in the shadows, if you will. So overall, our ticket flow is about even, which is good. You don't want it too far either way. The nice thing is we did so much last year. If you remember, we did all the servers, all the network, everything in both locations. You can see the amount of time, particularly with the phone system, is down 60 hours. It's a lot of time back to people working. Network, similarly, 50 hours about there. Less issues popping up. A lot of hiring last year, so the user stuff is usually desk setup and onboarding, that type of stuff, so not quite as much of that either. A lot of time back in that area. But security is up. We're spending more time on that because we're not having to, fix stuff because things are working a lot better. This year's initiatives were, the list looks small, but the effort was great. Thank you, Sean. The camera system at Bakken Park was replaced. We have the MSB, the Municipal Services Building, and Village Hall coming shortly. And also with that is access control we put in at Bakken Park, and we'll be putting it in this building as well. Moving forward, we're going to get rid of all the cabling that's still upstairs at the Municipal Services Building that's exposed to the outdoors. And we implemented an MDR solution, which is managed detection and response, 24/7 hunting of all threats, actionable or not. They're dealt with at all times. So that's been a big improvement also. Again, the security time we spend goes up with that. And we replaced another 14 workstations this year, which is great because we've gotten onto a schedule where we're not taking a big hit any one year, but it's spread out over a matter of 4 years probably. So we've done a great job with that. Credit to Cam on that, kind of got that all figured out. So that's basically where we were at this year. We still have our annual cybersecurity training coming up, which everybody loves and tells me great things about. That's when I talk to some of you, I think, actually. And we'll get the cameras installed here along with the Municipal Services Building. That's still to come. And then our end of year service review reports, which I send out to the points of contact that we have. So that's pretty much it for 2024. Probably underselling it quite a bit, but that's the bullet points, if you will. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Just a little feedback, I recently had to get some help with my account and passwords, and it was very easy to talk to someone. I wasn't put on hold, and I figured it out very shortly, so I appreciate that very much.
And their name probably started with J.
Probably.
Probably. That's good.
Just with our current climate with security, are there any major updates that need to happen in regards to security?
Well, we took a huge leap last year with all the things we put into place. So putting in the managed detection and response this year really, really puts us at the top level of where most places are not where we are. We are definitely above the average. So I think when you add the physical security stuff that we're putting in place in terms of doors and cameras, it really, really is a really high level of security all around, not just on the cyber side. Mhm.
Any other
And
questions?
to that point, Larry, so insurance companies are not, are kind of getting more and more scared of covering cybersecurity, specifically with municipalities. So some of the security stuff we implemented was to make sure that we continue to be at that high level of security, and ensuring that, one, we can get coverage and we can get coverage at a reasonable cost. And again, we do have a lot of information that's being protected. So thanks, Larry, to his team, and really appreciate him.
Yeah, and a lot of it is mandated now by insurance companies. MDR is not yet, but it's very likely next year it'll be, you have to have it or you will not get a policy. I've even heard people talk at conferences about them stopping cyber insurance altogether, but that's above me. But yeah, there's a lot of losses for a lot of years, to Cam's point, so they've pretty much made people do what they have to.
All right, thanks, Larry, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Strand, Josh?
I'm going to share too, Lisa. Couple engineers, I know you guys are excited.
We're on pins and needles right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, whoa, here they come. Okay. Sharon?
Yep.
Thanks for having us here again this year. It's been 3 years now. I was thinking about that since Strand came on board and was helping the village. This is our annual review. We appreciate coming in front of you guys once a year and being able to talk to the board members. My name is Josh Straka. Some of you are maybe newer faces this year than in past years. With me tonight is Tyler Wallen. Sorry.
Nope. Nice to meet everyone if I haven't seen you guys before, but.
Yep. So we're just going to kind of walk through the year a little bit, and we'd love some feedback after this too as well. A little bit about Strand. I'd like to talk a little bit about Strand first, those who don't know us. We're going back and forth here. We were established in 1946. We're a multidisciplinary engineering firm, 12 locations nationwide, mostly in the Midwest. Our Madison office is our headquarters, so we have 500 employees kind of firm-wide, 200 of them in the Madison office, so quite a big Madison office, and we're employee-owned. We're a full-service engineering firm. We municipal, transportation, wastewater, water supply, building facilities, green infrastructure, aviation. You guys have really touched on all of those besides the aviation piece, but we've had all of our different groups and divisions kind of helping out. And that's important to us because our team provides the village with numerous engineering connections. I believe in the connection side of it a little bit. It's not just me or Ty, it's how many resources can you turn to. This is just some faces that were involved just last year in the community and the different aspects that they touched. And I think it's important, for the board, but important for the staff that they can call anybody at any time and kind of get answers when needed. So let's talk a little bit about our projects here this past year. I like to break it up in buckets a little bit. Site reviews, list of site reviews there: Amazon, Foundation Dance, Cottage Grove Realty, Alliant Energy, Heyday, Verizon. There was probably a few more in there. Those are some of the majors. Developments: Shady Grove, just finishing up. West Lawn always has kind of an ongoing phase out there. And Cory Ridge is just starting their last phase, actually, as part of their infrastructure. Public works side, it's a little bit lighter of a year than it has been in the past couple of years. 2024 street projects and parking lot rehabilitations. I'm gonna let Ty talk a little bit about that. And then on the utility side, we're working on SCADA, which is kind of the telecommunication systems between the wells and the lift stations and the MSB building, so they can kind of all talk and communicate, and you can control them from one facility. So let's just jump into the public works side just a little bit to just discuss that project, show some pictures.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So as Josh mentioned, our Public Works project for this year was the 2024 streets and parking lot. On the screen now is the kind of the map of the area that was worked on. As you can see, there's quite a few streets. This is kind of colloquial known as the Crawford Plat and the First West Lawn Plat. And you can kind of see the different streets that were worked on. So the next picture here, this is Cresthaven Drive looking north, and kind of the main focus and goal of this project was it was a rehabilitation, so it wasn't a reconstruction, but with that, we looked to address substandard ADA ramps to bring those up to current standards, as well as spot replacement of curb, sidewalk, and driveway aprons, and then, of course, new asphalt pavement. So in this next photo, you can see it's the same area. New sidewalk in this stretch, couple new curb ramps on each corner, and then new asphalt pavement as well as sidewalk and some driveways. And this was throughout that entire plat you saw. This was kind of a representative picture of what was done. In addition, there were 3 village buildings that we worked on as well, one of them being right here at Village Hall. So this is just out front this spring. You can kind of see the pavement's in poor shape. The concrete walking up to the building was starting to fail, and the lights were older. So now this is taken just a couple days ago. As you all have seen, it's got new pavement, there's new concrete, new lights, and kind of just to provide a better entrance to the Village Hall for the public. The second building is the Municipal Services Building, MSB. This was another area that the village identified as you can see there's failing pavement there, as well as on the right you can see those 2 doors, and there's about 5 or 6 steps that lead up to it. And the public uses this for the recreational programs, and we wanted to provide an ADA accessible way to get into that building. So as you can see on the next photo here, just keep an eye on those doors. You saw how much the ground was raised, as well as there's new sidewalk there. Unfortunately, the pavement is not here yet. That's fingers crossed it'll be here next week. But you can kind of see on the picture on the left there that the area that was raised up to those doors to make them flush with the ground. And lastly, the Bonnie Road Public Works facility. This is just across the street from MSB. This is looking east at the building. You can see there's those old concrete blocks there. Those were removed, as well as the pavement looks in pretty poor condition. Again, pavement, fingers crossed next week, but this is what it looks like now. There's some new concrete out there. Those blocks have been removed, new base, or graded the base course out, and it's going to be ready to be paved. Also right behind this picture is the salt shed has got some new concrete pavement in front of it. That was required for DNR to have an impervious surface. The asphalt was not up to current standards. So I'll pass it back to Josh.
Yeah, so like, what are we doing next year? You know, what's upcoming? I feel like most of you probably know what's all out there, but I'm just gonna kind of run through the list. Development-wise, we're still at West Lawn, Quarry Ridge. Amazon facility, there'll be quite a bit of development out there. You can see they're moving ground. There'll be public utilities, sewer and water that's run out to that building. And then there'll also be public infrastructure on the roads. Both county roads at some point will have improved county road improvements as part of that project. The parks will be coming back and helping Sean in Bark Park a little bit, and Houston Parks. There'll be some park projects again next year. And then Public Works, the 2025 street rehabilitation, similar to what was this year, but in some different locations. Cottage Grove Road multi-use path that you guys approved in the budget. Main Street Taylor and Wellbridge intersection improvements. That's been talked about for a while, and we'll be studying some different things we can do there. And then a stormwater quality management plan that kind of sets you guys up on the stormwater side for years to come, to allow you to really plan for stormwater, but also then to get grants on top of that to help fund some of that as you go along. And then currently, right now, we're working on the utility side on the Ridge lift station piece of it. We're trying to get a force main over there, a site for future development on the east side of the community. In the design, just a rendering of what that building looks like. It's supposed to mimic over there in Vilas, the lift station, and also the well 4 up in Commerce Park. So that's just an image of it. It's 2-bay garage with the lift station facility kind of behind there in the backside of it. Is there any questions?
Where's that Ridge lift station gonna go?
At the
Is there a
end-
site identified?
Yeah, there is, and I'm, end of
End of Dentaria Drive.
Dentaria, yeah. I was
Dead
trying to
end
think.
there.
It dead ends at the end before it kind of goes out into the field on the far east side there. So you can envision that being sort of a cul-de-sac bulb at the end there and it being just north of that. So right off of that side of the existing right-of-way.
First of all, I want to say thank you to you guys for everything you do. You're awesome. I appreciate it. And I do have a question. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for it, so if we want to talk later, if we can. But I'm curious about the MSB building and the old Public Works building. I've asked a few times about when it's going to get done, and it seems like every time I've asked, they say next week, hopefully. So I'm just curious what's going on with that.
Yeah, no, it's been a bit of a struggle, you know, working with a few different contractors. You know, there's a couple moving parts and who has to come in first, and then the sequence of operations. It's definitely been a, I don't want to say a struggle, but you know, every day it's been a kind of a challenge of just keeping things moving and things like that. You know, there was certain, I mean, I could get into the details of the engineering about.
You're wondering on timing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the current?
So we do have a schedule. I mean, they poured some concrete Friday. They're supposed to pour some more Wednesday. They were working out there today. They set up some forms. After the concrete is poured, it has to cure and set up before they can grade up against it. So the schedule is to begin the grading either Saturday or Monday, and then paving is scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week.
Okay.
And Ty,
both-
you know,
both
feel free to
lots.
correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in order to make sure we get as many bids as possible to try to keep costs down, we try to provide, you know, we don't want to have too tight of a window to complete the project, because then you might only end up with like 1 or 2 bids
Sure.
versus a more competitive process and higher.
Yeah.
So,
You're right.
you know, if we give them a little bit of a bigger window to complete the project, what ends up then happening is it helps us with the cost, but then it's a little bit more uncertainty for when they will come and actually complete, because then they're kind of prioritizing other projects that they have going on. But at the end of the day, we do have, you know, there are penalties in place in case they're really not meeting the mark on the contract, so we can enforce that if we need to, but usually it doesn't come to that.
No, and Matt's 100% right. And part of this overall project, there was more of a focus on early of getting all the residential stuff done, Chris. You know, like get all the
Yeah,
residential
sure.
stuff and Village Hall, because we had to be done before the election. That was our goal for paving wise, which they succeeded in that. And then it was kind of like the last pieces, like Matt said, the schedule was long for them to kind of leave
Okay.
for a while and then come back. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Good question though.
Any questions?
Josh, can you go back 2 slides or 1 slide?
Uh-oh. Yes, sir.
Um,
This one?
Yep. So Strand, when they kind of are talking about their 2025 projects, those were put in some of these projects were put in the 2024 budget for the engineering and designing. Specifically, like they had mentioned, the path as well as the intersection. However, what you will see on here, that Bark Park, while design and engineering has been approved, a formal project has not, and similar with the lift station. So all of those are still in the kind of due diligence processes of a final project being moved forward, for those who are listening online or in the room.
Good clarification, Cameron. Yes, this is all more on the planning and design side. Maybe maybe the full construction hasn't been approved on some of these projects yet. Yeah.
All right. Anything else for Ty or Josh? Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Looks like we're gonna keep you busy next year. All right, I think that we're done with service provider presentations. Next, we have a discuss and consider resolution 2024 regarding White Cane Safety Day. The board did this last year, brought it back. Any questions, comments?
I appreciate the resolution coming forward to us, and with that, I will make the motion to approve resolution 2024-24 regarding recognizing White Cane Safety Day.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we have to discuss and consider invitation by the City of Sun Prairie regarding participation in a joint fire and EMS study.
Yeah, so really just the letter in the packet from Sun Prairie, and reached out email to the Cottage Grove Fire Department and Deer Grove EMS, and I think Chief Lang maybe had to jump away to the town meeting. I see he's on the Zoom. He provided some comment as well in email, and Cottage Grove Fire is here as well. So they were just asking if we would like to participate in the study, no cost.
So I guess the question is, what I read, I don't know if you know, Matt, but it really talks about the study will not make any formal recommendations. I mean, so what is the output of this?
I don't know anything more than what was, what's in
Okay.
here.
I mean,
Yeah.
if there's no cost to participate, certainly the exploration of possible enhancements, I think makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think they're just
I'm
asking.
not opposed to it, I'm just curious as to what the output is.
Yeah, I mean, they're just asking for, I mean, mainly it's probably publicly available or public record related information, and then, you know, there would be some staff or, you know, time for chiefs to participate in some meetings. Larry, I don't know if you were gonna speak to maybe the output, but.
Yeah, I think the output will, if they identify, in this type of thing, if they identify options to be considered, they will share those. So they're not gonna say. Yeah, well, not even a recommendation, yeah, right, so they might say, here's an opportunity for collaboration or cost savings or improvements to, you know, what you can do for our firefighters. I'd be very, very surprised if it didn't come out with some ideas for us to talk about. I think that's more what it is than, we think you should do this.
I see Chief Lang's comments. I'm curious from the fire department. Chief Archibald, if you have any thoughts.
Our opinion was that
Chief, sorry, they won't be able to hear you on Zoom, sorry. Make it moving around here, but appreciate it. And then you just, yep, you got it. Thank you.
So our opinion was that we would participate in whatever you guys needed from us. But we also feel that we just did a study 2 years ago that you guys are well aware of. So we've been following that. So our recommendation would be to continue to follow the study we're already following the steps that have been laid out and meeting those goals. So, but like I said, we would be willing to participate however you want us to, so.
Yep, thank you very much. Since we have Chief Archibald, any other questions?
I guess I was wondering, did either of the commissions, did either of them talk about, this came in probably since their last meetings?
I sent the chief elected officials each this as well. I don't know if they received a letter as well, but our data would be their data, so, and there's no, you know, we'd certainly, if they're not, if they weren't sent the letter, we would forward the study to them so they can see everything as well, and I'm sure there'll be updates at the various commissions.
I believe, I spoke to Hampton yesterday, it sounds like they're discussing it at their meeting as well, so.
It wasn't discussed at EMS commission, it came the day after.
Correct, same with GFC.
Okay. I think we just, you already said that you're following what the plan was from a couple of years ago, and that's great. So I think it's, in my mind, worth at least exploring if there's no cost. Obviously, a little bit of the chief's time and some staff time, but, you know, again, if there's ideas to kick around after that, I think that's worthwhile in itself, if nothing else, for everybody to get together and, you know, make connections. from emergency services beyond what we already have in place.
I don't know if it came to fruition, but I think some communities in the Middleton area may be looking at something similar to this with the same policy forum group. So I think it's much more broad and high level than the specific study chief. I think they're looking at greater regional options and what that would look like.
And just for the record, so the fire department, the chief of us, McFarland, Stoughton, Oregon, and Edgerton, before they became the Lakeside Rescue that they are now, we had monthly meetings where we were kind of doing similar things like this, where we were talking about what could we do to work together better, could we make some policies that we share that make it better when we have to work with each other. So informally, we've been doing this with surrounding departments for a while, so.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Chief Lang, anything you want to comment on, or since I do see you now?
Yeah, sorry, I'm standing outside, so you only get to see my shadow in black and white.
You're fine.
Yeah, I concur with everything that's said. I've had some preliminary discussions with Chief Garrison from Sun Prairie, who kind of said that this was going to be coming out. We do have opportunities for finding ways to work together and save money. Some things that have been attempted to be explored in the past, as Chief Archibald mentioned, that this kind of formalizes some things and gives some specific reference to those areas. I think a big one that I'll try to leverage with the policy forum would be our billing agency is one of them. If you look at our full county, we pay about $1 million to a billing agency for billing services. It'd be wonderful if all of us only paid 50% of that and had a way that we could save some money that way, along with sharing of staff, equipment purchasing, all the things that are mentioned. We do have, as I think was also mentioned, a lot of data that was acquired through both of our PAA analyses, whether it be the department evaluation or the due diligence, that we can also provide to the study and the greater good.
All right, thanks, Chief. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, this is discuss and consider.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the invitation from, or join the city of Sun Prairie regarding participation in the joint fire EMS study.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Just want to again thanks both chiefs for being available tonight, as I know they're both busy, so as always, appreciate you guys. If there's anything else, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next, then we have discuss a proposal from Muller Communication regarding services related to the potential library referendum. And I believe Cass is on Zoom.
Hi, I'm on Zoom tonight.
Yes.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I am going to go ahead and share a quick presentation that we've pulled together. Are you able to see my screen with a large slide on it?
No. Not yet.
No, fun. Let's try that again. How about now?
There we go.
There we go. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Cass Bergman, and I work at Miller Communications. Miller Communications, we are a 360 marketing firm. And so what does that mean? We bring a really diverse approach to our clients with us, our different skill sets. So we really think of ourselves as strategic problem solvers. So some days that problem looks like managing a challenging crisis communications situation for a client. Other times it's launching a full service digital marketing campaign. And in recent years, it's looked like partnering with municipalities like yours to help address state funding challenges. that might be threatening different types of services or preventing communities from bringing services online. We have a really diverse client roster. So we work with everyone from nonprofits around the state to large Fortune 500 companies. And I think one of the unique things about us is that we have a long-standing partnership with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. So we act at Miller as an on-call service when member municipalities have a communications crisis or need that arises. So oftentimes that looks like us just helping for that one specific situation. Other times those relationships have really grown and blossomed over the years and for us to provide more robust support. So as a result, we have a very deep understanding of local governments and the challenges that communities like yours are facing across the state. So the proposal that we pulled together tonight, I worked with Matt, JJ, and the team to really help understand what the village is considering. I think what I've got, I'm gonna flip through a couple slides in the interest of time. So what we've pulled together for your consideration tonight is a public education campaign for a potential upcoming April referendum. So I want to underscore before I begin that this is really the goal of this type of approach is really an informed and engaged electorate. So municipalities can't advocate for or obviously against an outcome of an election or a referendum. Rather, they're really only able to educate about what's on the ballot. And so the different referendum campaigns that we've done for other municipalities are strictly educational in nature. I flipped through a slide. We've supported a number of communities across the state in different referenda efforts, ranging from strictly operational referenda to public safety, so fire, EMS services, police services, and the like. So in talking with Matt and the team, it sounds like the referendum would be on the April ballot. And so what I have, what I'll share with you just now is the approach that we would take to between now and that April election to help pull together materials and help educate about what the village is putting forward. So what we do as part of this work is develop a campaign that clearly articulates for voters the need for the additional resources that the community is asking for. So what we do first is pull together a plan and strategy that is specific to the village and its needs. So we work with city officials, city administrators to understand different communications channels and different approaches and how the village communicates with residents today. If that's Facebook, different newsletters, different paper, op-eds in papers or anything like that, really want to take a deep look into what that looks like. We also then spend the first part of our engagement understanding the issue at hand and working together to really understand and articulate that message and that narrative. So part of our work is developing a messaging document. This is a tool that is an internal facing document that really lists out all of the different messaging around the referendum. So why the referendum is on the ballot, what it would do if the community votes yes, if they vote no, what the tax impact might be, and other messages that help demonstrate why the community is making the ask that it is. Once we have that messaging informed and approved by the community, we use that to develop and cascade through a number of different materials that will then be used by village officials to go out to the community. So that can take the form of fact sheets and infographics and FAQ. Residents often have a lot of questions, as I'm sure you've already heard through this process, about what the ask looks like, how it got like how we've gotten to this point, different studies or different tools that have been used to reach this. So we usually for a community develop quite a robust FAQ document so that we've got all of those answers in one spot for community and residents to look at. From there, there's a number of different outreach approaches that we'll then take. So we'll work through a number of direct mailers, usually target 3 different mailers that will go to every residence in the village. So homes, apartments, all of those, will ask for those addresses or work with our mailing house to get those. We'll also then help with everything from graphics and posters to a presentation deck that then village officials can use when they go out to do different information sessions with the community. We really encourage the different village officials to go out and set up different sessions, both within the village structure and without. So inviting people in for different info sessions, but then also going to different community organizations, like if there is a strong Rotary presence or VFW, making sure that you're able to get onto those meetings and into those avenues to be able to talk about the referendum and why it's on the ballot. We also then help with everything from website copy, so developing the content for a landing page on the village's website, supporting different social media posts. We've seen already that there's a pretty engaged Facebook page, so making sure that we've got posts that will go up on that resource, and working through things like a video that we can use as a paid ad to go up that helps for people who aren't following the village's Facebook page. It would go up and be targeted to everyone in the community so that people can understand what the referendum is and what a yes vote and what a no vote mean. We'll also work with the team to develop and distribute a couple of news releases and pitches throughout, so helping send out information to media outlets to make sure that they know what the question that was approved looks like, when it's on the ballot, and when those different information sessions might be. We've got a pretty robust timeline, so usually we engage about, we like to engage with a community about 4 to 5 months out from the election. That allows us enough time to have those conversations to develop all of those foundational materials so that when the question is approved, likely in early January, we've got all of that information all ready to go so that it's then time for village officials to go out and start communicating and discussing this more robustly with the community. So we've put a sample timeline here, which is also in the packet that you've all received. So a lot of foundational work happening in November and December. The question, the deadline to get that the deadline to get the referendum question to the county is in mid-January this year, so January 21st. So making sure that we're all lined up and ready to go, and then cascading a lot of those materials out afterwards. So working through mailers, that presentation deck, making sure that everything's ready to go on different Facebook pages and the like. I know I've spun through that pretty fast, but I want to make sure that we leave time for questions. So what questions or information can I offer?
Any questions for Cass?
Yeah, Cass, thank you very much for going through that. I guess I had one question as I went through it. It's really robust, and I guess it's really expensive. And I guess, is there a subset or options that you would propose in terms of, 3 full-color direct mailers? Is there a more cost-effective way to go about that? I mean, 3 seems like a lot. Full color adds cost. I understand that there's a need to get the information out there, but it's a really expensive campaign for sure.
No, thanks for that question. We're happy to work with the village to help see where we can bring back some of those costs. The mailers are usually one way that we do that. Also, if the village does have any relationships with other vendors, including videographers or other printing houses, we're happy to take those into consideration as well.
I think this is one area where we likely need to be, do our due diligence and make sure that we are getting the right information out to everyone in the village so that they can make the right decisions. And this is, a proposal I think that would meet the expectations of the community. And I think setting us up for the future too, this sets the precedent for how referendums are done kind of in the modern age with the technology and how people are kind of gathering information. And so a lot of this is likely necessary to get out to the people.
I'm wondering on the timeline, just given that the proposal from Engberg for the engineering and architect will be 90 days for delivery of that report, and this work has us starting in November before we will likely have that complete. Is there like a phase one that we could engage in until we know for sure if the building will even be appropriate for a library, and then a phase two?
We can definitely work together with Matt and the team to consider that phasing. I think we've developed this at the same time that some of those proposals were in the works. So a lot of the work that we'll do in November and December is just kind of getting our arms around, again, a lot of the messaging and the specifics. So they're able to use then if and when we get to the point of going to referendum. Again, we can work with Matt to talk about what that timeline looks like and see how we can potentially match that up here.
Yeah, and the cost, right? So we'd agree to phase one for info gathering, and then if we move forward with the building, then we would move forward with phase two, but we wouldn't sign on for the whole project right away. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Good questions. Anything from anybody else? Otherwise, this is a closed session item. All right. Thanks, Cass. Appreciate you being here tonight and answering our questions.
Yep.
And
Thank
the
you.
presentation. All right. We'll move then to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting off with Pier Court. Cindy?
All right, so Pier Court Steering Committee met September 17th at 5 p.m. Virtually, and we had a report from Briar Patch Youth Services, and Shanice shared that several cases have been closed out since the last meeting, and 6 additional youths have been referred to Briar Patch. So our Cottage Grove year-to-date is 15 with 6 closed out, so that's exceeding the 2023 numbers. We discussed website changes, which I just emailed JJ today, that we are interested in kind of revamping that and providing a little bit more information about restorative justice, kind of as our new name, kind of aligning a little bit with the practices of the surrounding areas, and then providing a little bit more description and contact information for Briar Patch so that the public is a little bit more aware of what those services are the village engages in. And then kind of our big item was discussing the reorganization of peer steering. And so this kind of came about kind of when I joined this committee, so this is my first meeting. But the committee was originally established as an ad hoc committee in 2005, and the MOU with Briar Patch had been existing since then and hadn't been updated. So the idea was to kind of re-engage with that MOU, and through that we kind of, and then working with the police team, kind of came up with a process that aligns with what other surrounding areas are doing, and that's implementing a direct referral system where the police department would oversee the restorative justice ticket, and under this system the youth could be directly referred to Briar Patch versus going through Pier Court first, or going to the judge first and then going to Briar Patch and then coming back. And so this effectively kind of reorganizes the workflow, and I think makes things a little bit more efficient kind of for everyone involved, and then possibly eliminates the need for a peer court steering committee, and instead would all go to law enforcement committee, and all of the reports would go on a monthly basis to law enforcement. And then Briar Patch could come to the village board, kind of like an annual service, and kind of give an overall state of the Briar Patch service for the village. So I think other benefits were that Briar Patch has the capacity, they had the capacity to handle a lot more cases as well, and more cases could then be referred. So you kind of are targeting more youths that could maybe benefit from the system. And then we are aligning our model with what is similar to Monona and Sun Prairie and kind of adjacent communities. So we are going to meet again in November, November 19th, and we're hoping that the police department has a little bit kind of an update on all of the reorganization changes that would need to happen, and then we could talk again at the village board level and move forward with a hopeful reorganization start date of January 1st. What did I miss?
You covered it all, and we will have everything in place for the November meeting.
Questions?
It's nice to see we're moving forward with that process and making it a little more streamlined and, you know, hopefully getting the help that's needed to those that need it.
So I just have a little clarity. So Briar Patch is working closely with the police department, or are you, I guess, getting support from Briar Patch for youth services, or?
There will be greater interaction in the future going with this new model. So, again, trying to improve on the efficiencies that we can to make it the best for the juvenile community.
All right. If there's no other questions then regarding that, we'll move on to the library board. Cindy, it's you again.
There were a lot of meetings that week. I think there were 5, and it was extremely overwhelming. Okay. So I'll start with the library board facilities subcommittee. We met Thursday, September 18th, right before the library board meeting. And we had 1 hour, and we discussed we kind of split it up into 2 30-minute chunks. So we first discussed recommendations for kind of a 4-year personnel planning. We last year, for those of you who don't know, came up with an organizational chart for the master plan for the library. And that included all the positions we needed to staff and how we were going to staff the library. And so this, during the first 30 minutes, we kind of took our original outline for the organization and talked about how we were going to reorganize it to meet the new needs of this potential space. So we talked through the Dane County standards for minimum hours that the village needs to meet, which is 47, open 47 hours a week. We discussed how many days open we would want to be, and if we wanted to be closed any days, or if we wanted to have limited hours on certain days. And we want to be really careful here when none of this is set in stone. This is all kind of mock, because all information that is going to eventually help guide some of our budget discussions that I'm sure Cameron and I will talk about way later in the agenda. So we discussed those Dane County standards for hours and how many FTEs we need. And a lot of that discussion also was how can we reduce staff, but also maintain eyes on both levels of the building and make sure that we are doing things as appropriate as possible. So including 2 self-checkouts reduces our requirements for the number of FTEs. Having a sorter reduces a full FTE requirements. Going to some type of a part-time model reduces some of the costs associated with that. So these are just kind of things that we talked about. I then took this back to Cameron. We've gone through a couple of versions of how we would operate the library, took it to the library directors of Dane County, working on some of that and how we can best do this and still meet the needs of the community in that space. So that was the first 30 minutes. The second 30 minutes, we discussed the space needs for the Learning Ladder sites. And so attached to that agenda, I think, were all of the space needs assessments we've done for the last however many years. And included the new space needs worksheets, which is based off of a version of, I think it's DPI's website. And we talked about how could this square footage kind of meet the needs of a library, and would it meet the needs of a library, first of all? So we talked about specific space needs areas, how many seats would be in the meeting room, a story time space, all of the collection space, which Dane County has removed that as a requirement, and you still have to have material expenditures, but you don't need to have a specific number of books and a specific number of periodicals. But we were very intentional in our discussion. We know that Cottage Grove needs a collection and wants a collection, and we wanted to make sure that we maintain that collection space, so kind of working around that. We talked about how many study rooms we'd want. We talked about what would go upstairs and what would go downstairs. We talked a little bit about ADA. We have a long list of grants that we can apply for to help with making sure that this is a very accessible space. And then they gave me enough feedback that I could go back and rework the space needs worksheet, which I got to 12,554 square feet on the dot, as my daughter would say. And so it was very exciting that day when that happened. So I think the idea is we have a lot of kind of feasibility data. We think that this would fit, the square footage is big enough for a physical library to meet all the space. It was just a matter of kind of starting to brainstorm how we would kind of organize it, which we can definitely talk at our next facilities meeting, which is, I don't even know, coming up next week, I think. I don't know if you need that date. It's coming up next week, right? Okay. So that's the facilities discussion that we had.
The 16th.
The 16th, sorry, thank you, at 5 p.m. I'm meeting again before the library board. Questions on facilities for me?
I guess I had one question. So the original space assessment was 34,000 square feet. I'm curious as to how did it be 1/3 of that and still meet the needs of the growing community?
Sure.
I guess that's the question.
That's a great question. So we originally did 3 space needs assessments. So we had a 10,000 square foot, a 14,480 square foot, and a 24,000 square foot. Then we had a 4th scenario, which is what FGM came up with, which is the 35,000 square feet. And that really took in, we engaged with the community quite a bit last year on what people wanted in those spaces, what's missing in Cottage Grove, which we heard from people tonight, and how we can, that was the gold standard library. Obviously can be cut down significantly. 10,000 square feet is really where you're hitting kind of that's the minimum amount of space needed to house a collection, mechanicals, story room, conference rooms, et cetera. So we have a little bit, we're in between the basic service needs and the basic plus a little bit more. And so that little bit more gives us a little bit more flexibility in what we can do. And then at 6 o'clock, the library board met.
There's more to the story
Actually,
now.
at 6:05, the library board met, and I made a little oopsie in the agenda. So we will formalize our strategic plan at our next library board meeting. And we really discussed how, this is a new opportunity for us, and the learning ladder said in all of the discussion, but we still need a kind of a guiding document, and that's what that strategic plan is that we've worked on for the last 9 months. Kind of like a baby. All right, so we then discussed and considered our 2025 library board budget. And there were some changes incorporated in there, and one of those was I had to go back in and I did put in kind of the 3 asks. Well, there are 3 asks now that include the engineering, the Mueller communications plan, and then also some of the capital campaign costs that are gonna that I'd like the board to discuss and consider eventually to kind of get moving on some of these contingent pledges that would really help offset a lot of the capital and operational funding that's needed for the library. So you'll see the library board budget come through and all of the budget stuff, work that we have to do. We also approved the job description and responsibilities for Tracy's position as the library outreach and programming specialist, so moving her into kind of a formal role with a actual job description, so thanks to Inga for helping with that. And so she also has now performance review and just a little bit more formal in the village. We approved a land acknowledgement statement, which you can actually see in our story walk, just kind of acknowledging that this was Cottage Grove is Ho-Chunk land, and we plan on using this statement at all of our programs and having that present for all of our attendees to take a look at. We then discussed referendum needs and a timeline. So I had worked or talked to Matt a little bit before, actually I think it was before these 2 meetings. It might have been kind of a long day here. And presented that to the village board and they kind of, or to the library board, and kind of looking at all of the work that needs to be done between now and approving a referendum question in January, and then all of the work that has to be done from January until our potential referendum April 1st. And so we did add a couple other dates that we thought were kind of key in there in terms of kind of some fundraising goals and some of the work that has to be done there. Tracy then gave a programming, I have some cards for all of you. I can take one and pass it down. She reviewed the programming for summer and also for fall. October is very heavy with the centennial celebration, which I will be giving that report in a little bit. And so we are also excited to really have our Cottage Grove All Community Read. We did our approved the bills list, discuss a little bit of the facilities work that we did the hour before. And then I gave my very short president's report recapping the centennial event and some collaboration with other departments. One thing I wanted to note was that Cottage Grove relies on the bookmobile for our library collection and library service, and it has been off the road since the middle of August. And this is not the first time we've had kind of a delay in extended service from the bookmobile. A couple years ago, I think it was off the road for 14 weeks. And so it's just something that we're kind of keeping our eye on too. They are, obviously, librarians are great to work with, and they will deliver your holds to your house, and they do the best they can with the Read Mobile and the Dream Bus. But that kind of essential service for library has been missing for the last handful of weeks. We had a closed session performance review, and then we adjourned. And then our next meeting is also the 16th, so questions on that?
Cindy, so the bookmobile you said was off the road, was it like maintenance issues or?
They've had some parts issues, and then they get the wrong parts, and they are, if you subscribe to their email or follow them on social media, they let you know what's going on. But I think that there's been times where it's missed stops, and it's been missing in Cottage Grove for quite some time. So. They did not hit a turkey. This is a mechanical issue. So the turkey was the 14 weeks a couple years ago.
All right, thanks, Cindy. Next, then, we'll move to Deer Grove EMS.
All right, I'll give you a break this time, okay? I'm not gonna do as good a job as Cindy because she's very, what's that?
I have the meeting minutes if you'd like.
Yeah, I have my notes from the meeting that certainly would cover it, but, we met on September 19th at 6:30 PM here in Cottage Grove. As you can see on the agenda, there were a lot of items. The highlights were, of course, there was a nice note from somebody who had received services, and if the chief wants to talk to it, he can, but that was a very nice note from an individual that was very complimentary of the district. We did discuss and consider the resolution that we will talk about here tonight. Really, it's related to maintenance, predominantly because of the diesel units that we've got, and when we get to that, I'm sure Chief will speak to the details. And again, that's going to have to be approved by the town and the village of Deerfield. We did review billing rate increase, and we voted to adjust the rates very similar to surrounding communities. So we're very much in line. Then probably the thing we spent the most time on was talking about the budget and staffing. And so the goal is, and has always been to staff 2 full-time 24/7 units, one in Deerfield, one in Cottage Grove. Deerfield has been close to 100%, but because of challenges with temporary staff, we did have 2 casual staff EMTs that were planned to be converted to full-time, and there were some budget challenges that we discussed. We came to agreement in terms of how we would manage that. We did increase the revenue assumptions slightly, which are still conservative to the historical trends. And certainly, as Chief had pointed out when we met with the opening of the Stoughton Hospital emergency care or urgent care here in Cottage Grove, that's also going to drive more calls and certainly contribute to the revenue assumptions that I think are conservative. We did then go into closed session to discuss the Cambridge EMS district, and there was no news, and so there was no action. That was pretty much the summary of the meeting on the 19th. Any questions? All right.
Chief, anything you want to say, since you're still here?
I magically reappeared.
Yeah, it did.
No, nothing to add. Very good summary. Thank you, Peter.
All right, if there isn't.
Do we need to act on the vehicle maintenance funds?
We are going to talk about that, right?
Yeah, that's a discuss and consider.
That's a discuss and consider. So that is in the packet. So I don't know, Chief, do you want to kind of speak to the resolution and kind of the background?
Absolutely. So we own 3 ambulances, 4 total vehicles. 2 of our ambulances were purchased together in 2017 and have 130 and 150,000 miles on them roughly. As we've come to find out through the aging process and our use of diesel engines, government emissions and this, that, and the other, there's a particular, it's called a DPF or diesel particulate filter. It likes to be run a lot. Unfortunately, that's not our business model. Our business model is to drive to a house, let it idle, drive to a hospital, shut it down, drive to the station, turn it off. That's not, in their minds, running a lot, even though we have 130 and 150,000 miles. So those DPFs become clogged. Each individual part is $4,000. Luckily, each ambulance only has one of them, so you only have to replace them once, but it's still $4,000 each part, something that wasn't necessarily factored into the budget for the year thus far. Through this DPF process, we've also discovered some other major changes or major repairs that needed to be made to the ambulance. And as of the beginning of the month, we were at our $30,000 budget allotment for vehicle repair. So we know that we have continued to have DPF related problems. Not only is there the individual DPF, but there's anywhere between $150 and $5,000 worth of sensors on the whole exhaust system. That incrementally on one of the ambulances, we're finding that those are also going bad. Unfortunately, it seems you can only figure out the next one goes bad until you replace the first one. So that's probably a little bit more information than you needed to know. But what this resolution asks is to transfer $20,000 from the unassigned fund balance into the vehicle repair budget line specifically. If you look at the resolution, it tells you what our audited unassigned fund balance was at the beginning of the year. Technically, our unassigned fund balance at the beginning of the year was $100,000 more than that, but we took $100,000 from it to go into the budget for vehicle replacement purposes this year. So that the dollar amount that I report to you factors in that $100,000. So not only are we within our percentage of 20 to 25% for this year, looking forward to next year, we would also be within our percentages of fund balance, even if we use a little extra this year.
Any questions for Chief on the resolution?
I don't know if any other municipalities have signed this already or not, but does it matter if Christy's name is misspelled?
Who's?
Christy Williams is on here. It says Chrissy.
Oh, look at that. I don't know how many people have read that and not noticed it. She signed it with her real name, not her.
Does that matter? No, okay.
Chris, you passed the test.
I guess I'll use you as my proofreader, Chris. That's one of those things of where as you type things, you think your mind typed it in there, and then you look at it 5 days later, you're like, oh no, I guess it didn't.
Yeah, and spell check won't catch that.
So Chief, my question is about the vehicle maintenance fund going forward. Is that going to be enough? Do we expect these to be kind of one-time expenses, or, we don't want to go back to spend reserves,
That's a really good question, and when I presented this at the town, I actually answered it preemptively. We increased the vehicle repair budget line for next year. We also know that in April, we'll be sending away one of the 2017s to be remounted. So while we hope that we won't have any big repairs to make between now and April, we do know that anything after that will have a little bit of a grace period where the vehicle will, for about 12 weeks, not be here, and then it'll be brand new. So you hope that you don't get any of the big problems with a new vehicle. So yes, we're prepared for the future as well.
And isn't the remount going to be gasoline powered, not diesel?
Yes.
So that problem, the DPS isn't part of it, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was one of the decisions that through a lot of discussion, that we decided to go away from a diesel engine and the new chassis, just because diesel is a little bit more expensive, the oil changes are a bit more expensive, and there's a whole lot more emissions-based stuff on a diesel engine than there is on a gasoline engine. So
We weighed the factors and found that probably gonna, well, hoping with the new ambulance, we won't know until we have it by the time we need to remount the second one, if it's a good decision or not. So we'll have some time to adjust.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 2024-01-0919 for vehicle maintenance funds as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you all.
Then we move on to NADVIG. So Sarah or Lorene?
Yep, NADFIG. We had our meeting on September 23rd at 6 o'clock. We reviewed the testing and monitoring results with the person from Strand who came to review that data with us. There were no concerns reported from that data review, and we signed the 2025 service contract again with Strand. It will be $1,000 more than last year due to lab and rate increases, but no other language revisions. And our next meeting is November 25th.
Okay. Any questions there? All right. Then we'll move on to the fire district.
All right, so we met shortly after the NATVIG meeting and went through the chief's report, which you can see attached there if you're interested. We went through the budget that is also attached in the on the agenda. There was one additional piece on lightings, and I think it was $4,000. Does that sound right, Lorraine? That we added to the ESB expense category, but otherwise everything else was approved as it was presented. And we discussed speed restrictions on new fire apparatus. In the past, it was set to 65, and our new apparatus are set to 55. And so that has been challenging for the fire department on the highway when trying to respond to calls. So we checked with our insurance, legal, everyone we needed to, and it sounds like there's not any concern with raising that speed, which is what the fire department would like to do. So I think we'll be able to move forward with that. And then we had a couple closed session items. That was it.
All right. Any questions for Sarah? All right, we'll move on then to Law Enforcement Committee. In this case, we met on the 24th of September. Had an update on the PD building from Mike and Drew from the architecture group. Discussed and considered the budget, and we recommended approval of the budget as LEC at least, which will go through a bunch of other committees and eventually here. Main things there were they asked for 2 new police officers for next year, some additional equipment, and I can't even remember what else is on there, but those were the big items. Squads, new squads there, looking at that, which we do have a discuss and consider here because we may actually have found a squad that was available, which is astonishing. Also discussed in the budget was a tornado siren updates and starting that process. We only have 1 tornado siren for the village currently, and chief analysis with some companies found that we definitely need more than that and wanted to start that process next year to move, perhaps even kept in the budget. We'll start adding 1 more siren next year. Some other equipment, speed message board to collect more data. The one we currently have does not collect data. So there was a thought there. And then flock cameras, which again, those cameras that are at the various spots within the village, and they detect licenses that come in. Perhaps we're looking for somebody, whether an ambulance or something of that sort, or somebody has a stolen car. It helps our officers get to that location and hopefully address that issue. And then that was pretty much it on the budget side. And I'm glossing over, and we will definitely spend more time on that later on. Chief gave a summary of the reports. Nothing there as far as data-wise to be concerned about, at least from his perspective. And that was it. Chief, did I miss anything? Anything you want to highlight on the budget side?
No, you covered all the high points. The discuss and consider this evening related to the squad. So when we placed our order this year, we put in an order for 2 squads. Dealership actually got possession of 3. In next year's budget, as part of the cycling of vehicles for the agency, we were going to be asking for 3 squads in 2025. With this one coming in early and having the ability to get it now, sort of looking to make that shift. And then it'd be 2 squads next year that I'd be asking for, because we take possession of the one early. Cameron, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, that was wonderful. I think part of what we did there was we were having such a hard time getting vehicles. We figured let's ask for 3 and see what happens, knowing we could back out of the commitment if it wasn't approved in the budget. So ultimately too, it would be as part of the discussion on this, if we can kind of get feedback, if we can kind of continue that process, knowing that my recommendation would be at least 1 squad every year. We can kind of pre-order 1 ahead of budget cycle just to make sure that Chief and his team have the vehicles they need. And again, this is a maintenance saver too. So as we kind of draw down on the average life of the vehicles that are in place, we should see some reduction in maintenance. Now, obviously, as the fleet increases in size, proportionally per car, it will go down, but maybe not necessarily in total.
And again, just to emphasize, we've struggled, like other communities, to get police squads of this type. So it was rather surprising to hear that we could get 3 of them rather than in the past we couldn't get 1.
That is correct. And talking with the dealership, whatever is determined for next year's budget will be just in the regular lottery of requesting said vehicle, unknown when that vehicle or those vehicles would actually go through production and be available. So it's a hit or miss still to some degree.
I know we've been prioritizing going hybrid. Is this a hybrid option? Or I know we might not have much choice at this moment, but is this one a hybrid?
The squads that are currently available are not hybrid. And we're still working through the whole hybrid aspect of life also. There hasn't been some positive outcomes. We've been lucky so far. I hope to keep that trend with the one that we do have.
So we have one that's hybrid right now. How old is it?
That one is a 20, is that the 21 or, it's either 21 or a 22.
Okay, so it's getting up there.
It's getting used.
They're certainly more complicated.
A little more complicated. Again, we have not experienced some of the glitches or failures that other agencies have.
Do you see fuel efficiencies with that or no? I mean, a hybrid, unless you charge it, really doesn't give you a whole lot other than regen, right?
Yeah, there can be some fuel efficiencies there. Again, it's not a plug-in hybrid. This is a truly.
So it's just a regen, so it's
Yes.
really not gonna give you much.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and while we're talking about sustainability, going back to Public Works Committee and kind of doing a reset on sustainability, because we do have a couple building facility projects that these type of solar projects and other things can be better utilized, but also kind of what can we do with our fleet? Because there's likely options out there for getting discount, because these vehicles are more expensive. So, as we're counting the dollars of implementing every vehicle and thing the village has to cover, it's just been one thing that we are considering. But if we can defray some of those costs with some grant opportunities and updating kind of what our sustainability goals are, that will go a long ways. So that's likely going to go to Public Works in November.
I still would like us to keep thinking about hybrid, but with the costs of the maintenance of some of our older vehicles, we kind of got to take what we can get at this point. So
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve purchasing one 2025 police squad car in 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion?
I guess I got a question. So we budgeted two, Cameron, correct? So this would be incremental to the budget, and then it would just come off next year. So as far as,
Procedurally, what we'll do is it will still be a 2025 budget request. And then once it goes through the process on November 18th, when the budget's finally adopted, I'll bring a budget amendment forward to bring that cost into 2024, just to try to be transparent as possible, because there's going to be a couple other things where we either weren't able to purchase the item in 24 and it will go in 25, or like Kyla's plow truck, or snow patrol truck. There's some other things that were planned for 25 that we were able to buy it in 24. So we kind of let all the dust settle on that and then bring it forward. But I do think, just from a transparency perspective, the full request should be in the budget, budget memos and budget asks.
and we're talking about $73,000?
Ballpark-ish,
I
yes.
think they're about like 43 plus 15,000 in upfitting, and I think is that one the K9 one?
It is a possibility, yes. We're trying to
Okay,
work
well,
all,
it's
we're
one
trying
of
to
them,
work
and that
all the
one's just a
numbers
little bit
with
more
the vendor.
expensive.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Ultimately, this is going to save us money in the 25 budget, because we're paying $2024 for a 2025 budget item. So I do want to point out there is a benefit to taking, ordering one more than what's formally approved and having the option to cancel it.
All right, with that, then, thanks, Cameron. Thanks, Pete. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Drew, thanks for sticking with us.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen.
Yep, it's up.
Is it full screen?
Not yet.
Drew, do you have multiple screens that you normally work from?
Sometimes.
It's probably recognizing that screen right now.
Okay. Sounds like this has happened before.
Try dragging the presentation off your screen a little bit and it might show up.
Okay. Yeah, I might just try doing that. As long as everyone can see it okay. All right, so I'm with Engberg Anderson, obviously, and Mike Zilke was here a couple meetings ago and gave you an update when we were in the middle of schematic design on the new police station department, and I'm here. I've been working alongside Mike through this whole process. Now we've wrapped up schematic design and want to give an update on where things currently stand and what our next steps are. So first of all, you can see on the screen now an updated site plan and floor plan, which is what we have sent to our cost estimator, Myron Construction, that they're in the process of putting together a cost estimate so that we have an idea of where things sit right now. The main comment coming away from our last board meeting when Mike was here was primarily to shift the building so that it was closer to Progress Drive, a little bit more forward facing, and also to reduce the parking and pavement on the site. And so we did shift the building quite a bit so that it's still, it's much more centrally located within the site. and still has a very good street presence, as we'll show in some of the renderings further on. And we also reduced the total parking count here. You may remember that before the public parking was all right in front of the building, and we had 26 stalls. We've reduced that to 12, knowing that we have plenty of parallel parking on Progress Drive as well. We also reduced the secured parking count down to 30, which is enough for the largest work shift as well as all of the police vehicles, while planning for 18 future stalls across the back. Our civil engineer, JT Engineering, has evaluated the site plan and determined that all of the turning radiuses work for the equipment that's going to be going through here, and identified bioinfiltration basin locations that are adequate not only for the site plan that's presented, but also the future additions that we propose. One for office expansion off to the west, and another for a garage expansion up to the north. You can also see on the floor plan here, it's oriented the same as the site plan, that our front entry is on the south side of the building into a public lobby with access to an administrative assistant who can help with the public, as well as into a community room, which, working with Matt, Aaron, Chief, and JJ, we've sized for a 60-person commission meeting, as you see in this layout, but it could also accommodate a 100-person banquet type setting, or as well as 28 emergency cots in that sort of scenario. Past this blue line is the secure portion of the police operations. So the staff entry is here to the east. Without getting into too much of the details, the locker rooms are right off the entry. So officers will go there first, go into the equipment room, grab all their gear, then it's into the briefing room, then back out and either to the office if they're going to a command staff or a patrol suite. If they're heading out to get their car, they would go through the duty bag room and then into the garage where they get their car and head out from there. So the secure portion of the building is highlighted in red. On the back here, we have the Sally Port, which is sized for an ambulance if somebody is getting taken from this intake area to the hospital. We have booking, holding cells, interview spaces, all of that within a secure environment. And if someone is getting released from this space, we have a semi-private vestibule off to the north with parking reduced from 6 to 4 at that entry point. So overall, like I said, parking has been reduced, and flip through some of the images here in a little bit. So in addition to the civil engineer, our landscape architect has been evaluating some landscaping concepts, looking at all of the different fields and spaces that we have to play with. Working from east to west here, we have kind of an open lawn type of setting that falls between the PD and the MSB buildings, which could be used for different parks and rec type activities. Maintaining this aspect of the site was very important to the core team, so we kept that lawn in place. There would be some sort of fencing along the back, and you'll see that we've added in a sidewalk connecting the two buildings to that new sidewalk that's being put in as part of the improvement projects on the back side of the building. In front here, where we have the front entry and the community room that spills out, we really see this as kind of a plaza, very green, welcoming space, with this being a primary approach to the front entry, starting to develop materials and some of those characteristics. And then the rest of it really becomes a kind of a prairie, no-mow type setting, something that is easy to maintain, only has to get mowed once or twice a year at the most, and could grow into be about 3 feet tall and just really give a nice soft edge to the building if you're looking at it from the sidewalk or the street. And as the landscape architect has been refining some of these ideas, you can see where these native plantings, the prairie type grass, starts to fill in. Outside the community room, we've been playing around with how this wants to work. And right now we're really happy with having a kind of a paved area as sort of a breakout space if there's something going on in the community room that wants to spill outside through the doors to the side here. And then also a little grassy area that could complement that, or be the area if there's a table set out for Gatorade and orange slices and that sort of thing to support activities going on in the open lawn. So in the back side of this lawn, we're considering screening along the north here, ways to shield the secured parking, pulling elements of landscaping or pieces from the building, be it a sort of trellis type of structure or like pulling masonry using some combination other than just chain link fence to be able to screen that effectively. And then we also know that there's some pretty ugly but important equipment on the side of the MSB that we would want to screen in a similar fashion as well. So as far as building massing goes, here you can see the landscape isn't quite on here, but you can at least see what's green. We're starting to consider building materials as well. So we've identified what these are for the cost estimator so they understand from a cost purpose what they're evaluating. But really what we're thinking with this cream material is that it would be like a brick masonry, and then it would have a split face masonry wainscot along the base that would wrap the entire building. We also have accent metal panel material that you see very commonplace. That would be on this side, which is the staff break area and the mechanical room. And then we also start to see it at the front entry. Here we really get creative with the lobby that the curved space complements not only the parking, but the overall site layout and starts to play into this shape that wraps along the roof and will allow some clear story light to be able to get down into that corridor and into some of the workspaces that don't have an outside window. And along the back here, we have some of the office space, the CID conference room here at the back, the semi-private entry, and going back to that same metal panel material where we get to the sally port and the secure side of the building, and going back to the masonry at our trash and generator enclosure that's on the back end of the site. And on the secure parking side, again, we pulled the split face masonry across the back for durability reasons. And then above that, we would likely switch to a less expensive, but still very presentable fiber cement board or a similar metal panel type of material. Still to be determined what all of these color palettes are, but that's our next step. So then some street views approaching on Progress Drive. So shifting the building more centrally on the site still gives it a very nice street presence that's bolstered by the landscape elements that will come into play. And the view from that intersection where you see the curved piece at the lobby interacting with the site elements and the edge of the property. And those exterior materials, like I talked about, just to give you a sense of the sort of talk about at the public involvement meeting at the end of October. So coming out of the law enforcement committee meeting a couple weeks ago, the chief asked us to take a look at an alternate site plan layout. So this is a study that we put together, taking the building and shifting it all the way tight to the street corner to see about increasing the buildable area of the site as much as we could. So we opted to move it to the street corner as opposed to tucking it in closer to the MSB because building codes require us to maintain a 30-foot separation between buildings or otherwise the walls would have to be fire rated. So this was the best way for us to use the site while still leaving as much open space as we could. So we pulled the building tight to the corner. We shifted the secure parking, kept the same counts to the north to leave as much open space as we could. And what we ended up with was about an 18,000 square foot buildable area. So with this site plan arrangement, the building is oriented north-south, and you can see the dash lines here for the drive to get in and the parking that serves it. And even if the building was square-shaped or potentially connected to the municipal services building, that 18,000 number is really the maximum buildable area that we could achieve because we'll have to have some sort of a drive lane to get to it. So on the previous site plan, we had a 4,000 square foot addition to the police department, as well as in our lawn, it could serve up to an 8,000 square foot space. So that site plan has a 12,000 square foot buildable area. So the benefit of this plan is that we have an additional 6,000 square feet of buildable area. Now, the main issue with shifting this here, so we pushed it up to, you can see this pink line, that is the utility easement for the site that's currently set. There are utilities running in that. They're electrical and communication, so they're not very, very deep. So we cannot build the building beyond that line, which at the face here is 15 feet from the property line. The blue line here set back 30 feet from the property line is the zoning setback for the planned industrial district use, which is what's active for this site, the MSB site, and all the sites across the street. So if we push the building past that line, which this plan currently shows, we would have to rezone the property or apply for a variance. If we do that, the zoning commission would ask for, they'd say, what's your hardship? And we'd say, we want to increase the buildable area of the site. And they would say, you can go up to 4 stories or 45 feet, add a second floor. And we would say, we want to act in the interest of the community to increase the site as much as we can. And they would say, that's great, but it's going to set a bad precedent when the property owner across the street says, you let the village build up to 15 feet from the property line, why can't I do the same? And all of a sudden, if everyone's getting the rules bent for them, then it really isn't even an industrial district anymore. So that's something that we haven't talked to the zoning commission about it yet, but we feel that it would be an uphill battle to approach them with this. So the building layout that we have here is obviously just what we had before shifted over. So we would obviously take a closer look at the overall arrangement of the plan. So we would likely move the staff entry from the east side so that it's on the north side, closer to the parking, still farther from the trash enclosure than what our other plan option shows. This would mean that really no matter what we do, the semi-private entry really just becomes a side door. It doesn't have parking associated with it on the property. It would just be if someone is released from the secure area and goes out, then they just have to walk out the door and get picked up either off of Bonnie Road, or if it moved over here for some reason, then they would get picked up from the public parking side. Also with this plan layout, we currently don't have an option to expand the office, so we would have to probably shift that to the east side if we wanted to maintain that availability. Doing so would cut into the 18,000 square feet that we have. But in doing so, on this wall, that's where our mechanical space is, which has to be on an exterior wall. We also have our garage over here. So if we start shifting the plan to move office space to the east wall, then some of those back of house elements are going to be shifting likely onto this side that's butting up to Bonnie Road. So that's going to be a blank wall, no windows or very high, very little interaction on that wall. So there are different items that we would have to consider, as well as evaluating the limited expansion possibilities of the building, all of which would take away from at least one item that the PD identified during our pre-design effort that they would like to have, and that our more centrally located plan offers. So we also show this in 3 dimensions here. Again, just taking our building footprint and moving it closer to the street. So as you're coming up on Progress Drive, you can see the whole building is really out in the open. Until this property gets developed, it's going to be very much on display, kind of sitting off on its own. And so here you start to see what that building looks like. As you get up closer to it, we see the community room and some of the other spaces, which this distance that it is apart from the street is something like what you would find in a town square, more of an urban type setting, which is great for a lobby or the community room. But for some of the secure areas, it starts to get a little bit too intrusive for someone walking along the sidewalk. I'll also add that we have the angled parking that we've located off of the site. Forgot to mention that on the previous slide. But that's something that, yes, we moved it off to the side, but Any contractor who will be looking at this will see that and will add some allowance to it for the additional work that would have to happen in the street, to put up a barricade around it, to do all the cutting, do all the scheduling. There will likely be a stop sign and a crosswalk that we would want to paint on the street. So it's a small item, but it is something that would be added to the cost on that. So then here's the view from Bonnie Road, where we start to see, again, that same distance, but these are looking into offices where there are going to be people walking through, could be secure items, sensitive information. We would likely have to talk to the chief about, do we need to tint the windows? Do we need to put a privacy film up? That's something that we would need to evaluate in this scenario. Or if it shifts to the other side, then this becomes that wall where this is going to be the garage or the mechanical space, and it's going to be just a blank wall that's up against the street here, which the neighbors may or may not be appreciative of. And then the view from Bonnie Road looking south. So this is something that, again, you can do it. It'll be an uphill battle with zoning. We think as design professionals that placing the building centrally on the site allows for future expansion while also meeting the needs that the police department identified. We obviously can go with whatever we are directed, but that's how we feel about it. So then our next steps, like I said, the schematic design estimate is out currently with the cost estimator and should be back next week or so. And then we will evaluate that, make sure that we're still hitting the numbers where we need to be. If not, then we'll take another look at scope and evaluate to make sure that we can get that cost in line, and then we will proceed with design development. That phase will end in December, leading into construction documents. Still looking good for the bid date in May and construction in August or September of 2025, as we had previously discussed. And our initiative right now for me and Mike is to look at exterior materials, to really put a palette together, a few different options to play with, and really come into the public information meeting, #1, on October 29th with some great things to get some information on. So I know I went through that pretty fast, but let me know if I can go back or clarify anything.
So I'm sure Chris has questions. I have a simple one, I think. So looking at the base case, you talked about stormwater management. Where would that be on the site plan? I don't.
Yeah. So it would be off to the west corner of the site. So they're looking really at this area up in here, which JT Engineering has said that's going to be enough as from a bioinfiltration standpoint.
So that would be a retention pond?
Yes.
Okay, it wouldn't be a French drain type stormwater management?
No.
Okay.
And if they needed additional, they would actually increase this island in here and get their additional stormwater management in that location.
Thank you.
Can I ask an easy question first, maybe? I'm fixated on the locker room space, just because I've heard that that's so much of a constraint right now. And I just, how many locker rooms are there? And will it fit the needs for hiring, I think, 2 additional police officers for the next 10 years?
Yes.
Because I saw the 2 additions and you mentioned one is office space and one is garage, but no locker room, which is a problem now.
Yeah, so the lockers that we identified were based on future growth for the community at the size of 20,000. I believe there are 36 lockers in there, 36, 38 in that range, and that is accommodating that future growth.
Part of the other shift is with the command staff, those lockers are going to be in the offices for those personnel, so they're coming out of the locker room.
And you currently have kind of one shared large office space to do your briefings in, correct? And you've got 4 or 5 here?
We have one, the quasi squad room, officer work area, things of that nature. In this, we have the patrol briefing room, which is also going to work as the officer work area. The 4 rooms that are referenced are meant for dictation purposes, so officers would have the ability to be in a semi-private area to be able to do their dictations and things of that nature. And then, yes, there are 2 other meeting rooms, one for the command staff, which could function also because it's directly off the library for LEC meetings, and things of that nature. Excuse me. And then there is a meeting room for the detective. It's CID is what it's referred to there. It's the investigation division. So when they have their meetings, like stolen vehicle meetings that happen monthly, and/or investigations, things of sensitive nature, that they have their meeting area.
Maybe you can't tell me this. How many individuals do you process a day? I couldn't quite tell from all the spreadsheets in your committee meeting.
We are not set up to process people.
Okay.
That's part of moving to the future, the 21st century, to be able to handle processing people that don't need to go to Dane County Jail. Because right now, that's our only option.
Chief, thoughts on, Drew provided a second option here, moving the building closer to the road, which therein lies a lot of struggles as he outlined as far as the addition, the mechanicals, et cetera. Just so we can try to get an 18,000, potentially 18,000 square foot building of the future, which I don't see us doing anytime in the future because I don't know what we'd have to put there. So what does that do to your functionality of things? You know, there's various things that would have to be sorted out, but my perspective, just looking at it from a street view, I don't think it would look that great being pushed up that way. And then I get concerned about people that are that need assistance, you know, those that have wheelchairs or whatever else, getting out on the street in a, you know, parallel parked area or like an angle park. There's not a lot of space between cars, so that presents a lot of different problems. And of course, then with their street level, then go back up, you know, there's those different terrains too. I'm concerned about that when you push it that way. I'm also concerned about the ability to expand this building when, Drew, you said we couldn't on the one side of Bonnie where the prior version did have an expansion. So I'm just curious.
My opinion is I don't think this is the best move for a building that this village is investing in for long term. I believe the architects have given us a good initial layout and placement that is best for the site and for the future of the village, and represents a good, solid investment of what potentially would be one of the gems of the community as a municipal facility.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to go before I go?
I guess I have a follow-up on the locker rooms. So is it just, are you planning just male and female locker rooms, or is there, because that provides some flexibility in the future, like if you have more female officers and there's like overflow to like be able to utilize some kind of gender neutral area, or you have more male officers, like it may ebb and flow, so to have like a third area that could like, you know, be assigned depending on what your current workforce looks like.
Yeah, so what we have in here is based on the count that the chief gave us as far as the anticipated male to female balance. What we've shown here is something where if you're coming in and you want more privacy, you could just come in, grab your things, and then there's a single-use, gender-neutral toilet and shower room accessible right from outside the hallway. Otherwise, the showers and the toilets are all in their own individual spaces within there. But as you can see, like even on the female side, there's a little bit more space within here that if a couple lockers needed to be added, I think we could find a space to do that. But it is keeping the future workforce in mind.
Okay, I'm glad you have like an extra, like single space that does provide a little extra flexibility, so thank you.
So obviously my opinion is the one showing it closer to the road looks a lot better to me. I mean, you said it would be intrusive to the neighbors. To me, it's more inviting, not intrusive, because it's closer to the community and it's more welcoming to people. But I did want to just go over a couple other things that we talked about here. John mentioned he wasn't sure what we'd put here in the future. And I think that's kind of the point. We don't know what the future of the village is going to be. I know it's going to go there if we do it in the middle of the parking lot or the middle of the lot, and that's nothing because there won't be any space for it. Accessibility problems, and we can always put in some ramps there. Ramps are going to cost a lot less than a surface parking lot. Zoning variances is probably the big one, which I agree with. But also you said if we give a variance to this, other people are going to ask for a variance too, and my response to that would be, who cares? Not one single person is going to be walking through that district and say, hey, this doesn't look like a zoned industrial district. That's not a concern for me. I sent an email to everybody. I don't know if you read it or not. That went through most of my concerns, so I won't repeat myself here, but I just think having something, saving money on not having to do a large parking lot, bringing it closer to the community, making it more inviting for people is a better way to go. One other thing I did miss that I should also mention is, I mentioned Bonnie is due for street revamping in 2025. Progress is also due in 2028. So that could dovetail with working on the parking too, which makes sense to me. But interested to what you guys have to say.
You know, I guess when I look at it, Chris, I totally understand where you're going, trying to save space. To me, it kind of goes into the corner and it doesn't give visibility around the corner. I really don't like the angled street parkings for the same reason John had shared, that now you've got people that are gonna be getting in and out of cars on the road. Don't like that at all. I think this certainly gives us a little bit of option, but what is it, 4,000 square feet in terms of building space? There is the retained building space, and then of course you got the ability to add. So I get your concerns. I think this version reduced the number of impervious paved areas, which I think was one of your concerns, and I totally agree with that. But I think moving up to the street, it doesn't seem like it fits the neighborhood. It doesn't really fit the lot.
I am actually really grateful that the parking was changed. I'm really appreciative of that. As for visibility, as I mentioned in the email, that's a huge pedestrian crosswalk. So if limited visibility around the corner means vehicles have to slow down to take that turn, that's a good trade-off for me.
But Chris, that's an administrative control. Yeah. To say that people are gonna slow down because they can't see is absolutely false, right? The hazard that is presented by...
Do you think people are gonna go fast if they can't see what's coming?
They do it all the time now.
They do right now, right? I have a four-way stop in front of my house and people come flying through it all the time. I mean, it's an administrative control, so you're adding a hazard, a visibility issue, and you're expecting everybody to do what's right.
Well, I would hope that they're not speeding next to the police station. I do think, I do appreciate, Chris, that you asked for this option, because it does give the option to build another building. And I think having the foresight in mind that the village is growing and we have facility issues, like this is something that needs to be discussed, because facilities are an issue. And if we want this to be a village campus area at some point, do we need a third building in there?
I'd rather see a soccer field for little kids to play.
I mean, it's gonna be a soccer field in the meantime.
Right.
I'd rather see it forever.
And there's plenty of angled parking over on Clark Street that shows that angled parking next to soccer fields is a thing.
And this field, or this layout doesn't preclude the future addition a future addition to the MSB or a standalone building in here. It just would be a smaller building.
So you could get a building in between, the way it's laid out,
Yeah, it would be small, but
and parking.
you would probably just extend the MSB lot. But then you wouldn't have a soccer field.
I see a lot of Chris's points in bringing buildings like to the pedestrian. I think creates a different dynamic, but in perhaps a different spot. I mean, we are in the middle of an industrial park, so it's I don't know, I see this as more of like we said, a town square or like a higher density type area. So that's, I guess, my main comment on that. It seems like the site flows well for the type of use and the different areas that we need to have, like within the station, in the first option. So it provides a little bit of flexibility, but I think in a different space, I would 100% agree to bring it forward and kind of have a different style. But given the location of this facility, I think, you know, this option here, it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I'll add in, I also understand many of the points that Chris is making, but I think for this, I really feel like we do need some sort of public parking that is off the street to offer. I think of snow and having to potentially navigate piles of snow to get from the parking onto the sidewalk to get up there. The handicap accessibility. You know, Chris, you'd mentioned, well, if there was no angled but just parallel parking, that makes me even more nervous. The parking, the way, if you're coming off of Bonnie left to park in that angled spot is not gonna work. So I feel like we do need some smaller off-street parking option. I like that this offers a little space that we could have a small building if we need to. I think for me, the pros of this, the original site plan outweigh the other one.
I mean, you gotta plow parking lots too.
You do.
And for me, it's the planning commission piece of the zoning. If it doesn't get approved, then we can't even move forward, so.
We can speak to that, though. I mean, at the end of the day, the plan commission would just be making a recommendation to the board, so you guys would have the final say on that. If I'm misspeaking, Aaron, you can correct me.
If it was a variance, it would go to the zoning board of appeals, not the plan commission. I don't think I would recommend doing this as a variance. If we wanted to get the building in the corner, I think we'd probably just rezone it to a different district, central business district, something like that. You know, variance, the criteria for a variance is laid out by state law, and it's supposed to be really difficult to get. I mean, there are communities that just give them away to whoever asks, but here we've been pretty strict about really making people prove a hardship. So I don't think I'd be comfortable just giving ourselves one. I think we'd want to rezone it to a central business type district. But then are you doing that just to this parcel in the middle of an industrial park? And does that fit? I don't know, but there would be different ways to address the setbacks, and I don't think I would do it as a variance.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of different aspects of this are being discussed, but if the board wanted to do the alternative, the zoning is up to the board to determine to move forward. So I think that if there was a strong preference for that, we wouldn't add that as a potential obstacle.
Nothing. This is just an update, so.
One of the things I talked to Matt and the chief about was I had requested some stuff and didn't see it, so what they wanted was direction from the board, so they wanted to hear from more than just me. So I think they have the direction now, so that they're going to move forward.
And obviously, the community has an opportunity to weigh in on this a couple times as well. And we'll see it in various iterations as it continues to kind of move through the process for the various committees. All right. We'll move then to, thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
To the Ad Hoc Centennial Committee, and we are approaching the 12th hour, or the 12th day.
It is so exciting. It's, yes. So the Centennial Committee, we met on Wednesday, September 25th at 1:30 in the afternoon, which is slightly inconvenient for us working folks. But we walked the site layouts of the big party, which is this Saturday from 11 until 3. And so we kind of hashed out all of those details. You probably all got the postcard in the mail, which is also very exciting, good communication tactic to hopefully get people to come out. We still have food carts, and Deer Grove EMS will be there, and we have 12 big antique farm equipment pieces, big stuff. I know, I didn't want to say that, but yes. And there's going to be a craft sale outside of the outpost. We have music and 18 different businesses and organizations that are going to be doing things. And then everyone should go inside Flynn Hall and take a look at all of the Historical Society fun things to look at, and have a birthday cupcake and celebrate the centennial. Our next meeting is Wednesday morning, where we're gonna panic about planning, at least that's just me. And then looking forward to putting it all together and having the community come out and kind of celebrate the 100th year. And if you missed the Saturday celebration and you're part of the chamber, you can come to the chamber meeting, where I've now recruited Aaron to give a centennial presentation. So the history of the village.
That was pretty impressive.
20, yeah. And yes, and then his exciting work too. So thank you.
And I just want to say a kudos to Cindy and those that worked on the story walk. Very popular.
I see a lot of people stopping and looking at that.
It actually
it's
is,
pretty cool.
It's probably just me over and over again. But I think, it really is. It's fun to get back into doing something different and looking at kind of the history of, the place that you live in now. And it's fun to look at old pictures and to learn too. And so I've, asked the Historical Society for all their books so I can brush up for this presentation upcoming. But
It's more than just you, because I was walking the other day and there was like 4 different families that were like,
okay, well, that just made it, almost made it worth it. It was kind of a lot, but yeah. So I hope to see everyone there on Saturday.
All right. Thanks, Cindy. If there's no other questions, then we'll move to parks. Heidi.
Yep, we met on the 26th of September, and we had a brief presentation from Tracy on library programming updates. We do collaborate and utilize park space, so it was nice to see how our space can be utilized for the programming. Then most of our time we spent talking about the budget. We took back some of the feedback from the capital plan on some of the things that we moved around and changed, and how we can strategically use park development funds to move some of the projects forward, and then kind of relook at the community park shelter. So we went over then budget items, which we'll be able to review in more detail, but keeping up with ADA, security cameras, kind of in our, smaller capital project fund, and equipment, and kind of prioritized for Cameron to take back as they develop the budget presentation for the board on, what things maybe have some wiggle room, what's like a wish versus kind of what's needed to make sure we stay on track. As you look at the budget, and we'll go over this more in detail, a lot of the rec programs the costs are dependent on how many people sign up. So when you look at some of the budget items, we're estimating how many program participants we have. So if you have more questions about that as the budget comes up, you can bring those forward or ask Sean about that. Because some of those, you know, you're like, why did it only cost 24,000 when you budgeted this? But it's all dependent on how much people pay to be in and the number of enrollees you have. So it's a little bit different than some budgets. The Bark Park items were ordered, hoping to have them in and installed maybe by the end of the month. So hopefully we'll stay on track with those items. And then the Bakken tile wall rehabilitation is complete. So all those people that helped make the, as my niece calls it, the Castle Park happen, their tiles have been replaced there, and so I think it looks nice. And then Sean's report, and that's all for now, unless anyone has any questions, or Sean has something to add.
One thing to note is we did do some interviews for a parks maintenance position, made an offer, so we're hoping to have that person on board here by the end of the year.
Cool.
Excited about that.
Yep. All right. Any other questions, comments? And the tiles do look nice. Then we'll move to Public Works. Chris?
We met on Tuesday, October 1st at 6 p.m. We talked about e-cycle dates. It's going to be next year, April 21st through the 23rd, to sort of coincide with Earth Day. We're going to start this year with 2 dumpsters and go from there and see if we need more or less. It's going to be there for 2 days or until it's full. So if you have any e-cycle things next April, get there as soon as you can. We also talked about changing the monthly meeting date to coincide with utilities. And so we approved moving that to the second Wednesday of the month at 5:30. We had the engineer's report, which was pretty much what Josh went through earlier today, so I won't go over that again. Director's report, Alliance working on the streetlights on N, north of School Street. And then we also went over village staff doing the concrete work, and that seems to be going pretty well. And our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, the second Wednesday of November, 11/13, excuse me, at 5:30 in the evening. And that is it.
We'll see how many of us show up on the prior Tuesday, because we're used to that. All right.
Oh, sorry. Also, one more thing. It was JJ's last Public Works meeting, as tonight is his last village board meeting. Unfortunately. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to make sure. Thanks to JJ.
The sad part is he's got a lot of other meetings he's going to be going to now, which is great for him. Glad for him. Then we'll move to Joint Review Board. We met on October 3rd. This is where we review all the TIDs with the taxing jurisdictions, so the schools, Sun Prairie and Minot Grove, Madison College, the county, et cetera. So all those folks that are involved in taxing those parcels get together at least once a year by statute, and we walk through all those. Greg gave an overview along with Cameron on the TIDs and where they stand. And then tonight we're going to talk about TID number 7 closure, so, and the audit there. And Cameron, I'm assuming you're going to cover this?
Yep. And very briefly, really just, this is an option for the board to ask questions. So I'm going to share my screen here. So similar to our annual financial statement audit, because of the way that these funds are, apologize, having some, because the village controls kind of the tax increment for kind of all entities until the district closes. The state requires a 30% audit to be done, a 100% audit to be done, and a closeout audit. This audit represents both the 100% and closeout audit that was done at the same time. That was primarily a cost saver. Additionally, which the last page of the document is, there were two findings as part of the study. The first one was that the required 100% audit was not conducted what they consider timely, which is 12 months. And then the project cost incurred exceeded the total project cost in the original project plan plus amendments. Just wanted to point out, these are very common findings. So typically higher project costs, like in this situation, results in higher increment, which we can kind of see as demonstrated by this district actually, after paying all of its obligations and being extended a year for affordable housing, ended returning some funds to the overlying districts. So as budgeted, we budgeted about 42,000 in the general fund that we would get. Actually ended up a little bit better at 47,725. So this is again one-time revenue that we get during a TID closure. And I guess I'll kind of stop and answer any questions anybody might have.
Yeah, Cameron, I had a question. So on page 16, it talks to the project plan estimate versus the actual. And I understand what you're saying, that this happens where the spending doesn't match the budget. When I'm looking at reconstruction of Clark and N, it was 2.9 million on a budget of, I'm sorry, reconstruction of County Highway N. It was 2.9 million in actual versus a project plan of 250. That's like over a 10 times differential. So isn't there, or shouldn't there be a process where there is a review of what we're going to spend relative to the plan, so that at the end we don't close it and go, oh, I guess we sort of missed it?
Yeah, so similar to what's going to happen out in TID 10, you know, kind of for most of TID 7, the village was relatively small and again, had very limited staff. So the ability to do a formal amendment, so we can budget on our side, you know, make sure that our internal budget is correct. But in order to change the project plan, you actually have to go through the legal process of updating the plan through an amendment process. That costs roughly about $10,000 to do. So I agree in this instance, you know, had this been during my tenure, I would have maybe recommended that the project plan at least been brought forward. But it is important to know these expenditures are reported out annually to the Joint Review Board. And so it's clearly demonstrated when we have costs that exceed estimated amounts. I do fully anticipate to have these same exact findings for TID 5. But again, this is one of those things where it probably at this point, because that's in 2026, makes no sense to spend $10,000 just to have a finding go away. I think it's been very transparent in the joint review process at kind of where things are at. But yeah, TID 10 for sure will have an amendment similar with TID 9 once it gets going.
So last year when the Joint Review Board went through the TID 7, this was not a surprise. We knew where we were spending wise. Okay,
yep.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Both revenue and spending side.
And sometimes too, for context, this is over a 20-year period. So the project plan was created, 20 years ago. And, in that instance, even 20 years, you wouldn't expect to be that far out of whack on a project, but apparently it can happen.
Yeah, I
from
guess
time
I'm
to
just
time.
not accustomed to
I
seeing
think
a budget line.
I think the scope of it,
Yeah.
probably changed significantly, and that's what happened there.
Yeah.
Plus the amount of time that went by.
Right, but typically when you've got a 10x deviation, there's some sort of process, and it sounds like the annual review is when this happens, because it sort of jumps out at the closure. I'm not an advocate of spending $10,000 to update it. I think having the ad hoc type review through the Joint Review Board is the way to do it, just as long as it's not a surprise to you, Cameron.
Yep, and so kind of as Matt alluded, this TID was created in 2004, amended in 2010. I do want to point out the schedule that we're referencing. It's not any better when you get to this is a required schedule on page 13. This page 14 is purely just an additional transparency document. I did not have to actually include this in the final report, but I thought and consistent to how it's been presented in the past, having this presented is much more transparent than the one-line summary on page 13.
Yeah,
And
no,
I guess
agree. Thank you for
yeah, and
providing
with
that.
direction, I would like to continue to present it that way in the future.
Transparency is good. Anything else, Cameron, you want to say about joint review?
No, all TIDs look really good. You know, TID 6 was extended, the 6 years as planned.
Yeah.
But all of the TIDs are very healthy, and we're in a very unique situation compared to most municipalities. Most municipalities have either one or a couple, either distressed TIFs or severely distressed TIF. So the legal team and Aaron and Matt have done a really good job structuring agreements in the way that we're not providing incentives up front.
Thank you, Cameron. All right, if there's no other questions there, we'll move to reports from village officers. Larry, anything? Nothing. All right. We're gonna come back to you, Cameron.
All right. So as you are aware, last meeting we kind of talked at a high level about completion of kind of a financial management plan for the library operations. Between now and then, that last conversation, I'm officially kind of out on paternity leave. So right before I was, kind of finalizing that document with Cindy, kind of out for interim space. But Cindy and I are going to continue to work through that document. Just at a high level, there are a lot of considerations that have to go into it. So what we're primarily focused on right now is working on identifying revenues and potential revenue sources, identifying personnel. Does the current personnel or projected personnel support the hours of operation that are being advised? Then what are our direct operating costs? What are our indirect operating costs? And then what are going to be the debt service of this building? We'll discuss a little bit more, kind of just the overall library operations kind of moving forward in closed session a little bit more. But there is potentially an opportunity, to do some capital campaign or other items that, again, can offset the overall tax impact that's being projected. And at this time, I'm not comfortable putting a tax impact in front of this group. Really still going through that final review with Cindy and the library board to ultimately then present to this group. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
And congratulations, by the way, again.
Thank you.
Any comments there? Otherwise, we can move on. We've got more. We'll talk about more later, and certainly as the numbers come through.
No, and thank you to Cameron. I think there might have been 800 emails that went back and forth between every vendor and every librarian consultant in like course of a week. It was slightly overwhelming, but
we want to get it right, so
Yeah.
Not a problem. I really appreciate Cindy too and the library board and subcommittee being so open to back and forth communications and making sure we're getting the ask right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. With that, we move on to communication and miscellaneous business, starting off first with consideration of the vouchers.
I'll move approval for the vouchers as presented.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and second then. Any discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Under correspondence, I know, Laureen, you wanted to say something?
So I wanted to take just a moment to connect with the community and the village board through a statement as your newly appointed trustee member. I know there have been some concerns raised by some constituents about my time as president of the Monona Grove School Board and as a school board member, especially regarding the financial challenges that we're facing now. And I decided now was the time to best address those issues, so those concerns head on. While I wasn't solely responsible for making all those financial decisions, I do acknowledge my role in the situation, and accept responsibility for the outcome. Leadership means taking ownership of both the successes and setbacks. I'm here to roll up my sleeves, to find and advocate for solutions that would truly benefit our community. As your trustee, I'm committed to collaborating with Cameron, our finance director, on a monthly basis to thoroughly examine our financial situation and work diligently to ensure that we're using our resources wisely and maintaining transparency. Throughout my time on the school board, my focus has always been on making a positive impact on education, promoting sustainability, enhancing safety, and fostering a supportive environment for all students, the community, and staff. These goals will continue to guide me as we move forward, and I'm always eager to hear thoughts and ideas of the community as we work together to make Cottage Grove an even better place to live. With your support and collaboration, I'm confident that we can overcome any challenges and build a thriving community. I just want to say thank you again for listening to me and your support, and I feel like we can do this together. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. We had some other correspondence related to a number of folks online for all of the village board for supporting the library effort that's ongoing right now, we discussed earlier. I didn't have anything else, so I'll open up to anybody else that had anything.
I think I got over 115 emails. I think I got some separate from the village board too. And then I had one come in right before from Mark Pocan's office, who's interested in facilitating federal grants when the time comes.
I received a letter of resignation from JJ, Chris mentioned. I don't know if I formally accepted, so we could put it for a future agenda item.
Yeah.
I don't know if that messes up his plans, but
His truck is faced outward right now, ready to go. So just.
I think it's running as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
But no, we appreciate JJ's almost. He just didn't want to get to a full decade here, I guess. But we appreciate all of his service, and he'll be missed, and it's going to be hard to replace, which is part of the discussion later. But he'll do a great job in Cottage. So, thanks, JJ.
Thank you.
Mic drop. There you go. Yeah, that's true. All right. With that, upcoming community events, Cindy already mentioned the block party on Saturday, 11 to 3, and also Saturday, fire station is open, I want to say 11 to 1 for their annual kind of open house type thing. So we're hoping, and we put in the plug, I think, for that event as well, hoping people circulate down to the fire station along with the block party too. So I know those two things are coming up. Anybody else want to shout out anything? All right.
John, I got one thing. In the month of December, I'm looking to do 2 dates to kind of open the book / kind of a property tax in-person event at Village Hall, just welcoming residents to come in and just be available to answer questions. I will let you guys know when I get those dates put together, but encourage any village board members that are interested if they want to join.
All right. Thanks, Cameron. Appreciate it. All right, then, future agenda items. Matt, anything you want to? Budget stuff. Budget stuff. All right. Are there any from anyone else? I'll start the list here. I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session regarding negotiating position relative to the acquisition of library space. The Village of Cottage Grove Board will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses E, deliberating and negotiating, purchasing of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business wherever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Then we'll do the roll.
Dahl.
Aye.
Gage. Cal Nelson. Murphy.
Aye.
Stoa.
Yes.
Valencia.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye. I'd like to make another motion. The village board go into closed session regarding employee compensation and promotion. The village board will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, considering the employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee wherever the government body has jurisdictional exercise responsibility. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And then we'll do the roll.
Williams.
Aye.
Valencia.
Aye.
Stoa.
Yes.
Murphy.
Aye.
Cal Nelson. Gage. And Dahl.
All right, I'd like to make a motion then to go another closed session. The closed session regarding the annual village administrative performance evaluation. The Village of Cottage Grove Board will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee for which the government body has jurisdiction and exercise responsibility. Is there a second?
Second.
And we'll do a roll on this one.
Murphy.
Aye.
Stoa.
Yes.
Valencia.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Dahl.
Aye.
Gage.
Aye.
Cal Nelson.
All right, we're in closed session.
Come back tomorrow morning.